Hello. It's been some time, but I'm back now. And before we get into the season premiere for season 9 of Binge Movies, year 9, I wanted to address you, the audience, as briefly as possible. We'll start with the serious news, and then we'll move on to the fun stuff. Serious news is this. I have listeners all around the world, and I think it's pretty evident by now that the United States of America is in a free fall towards autocracy and complete collapse. I don't know how bad it's going to get. No one knows how bad it's going to get, or in what ways it's going to be bad. Right now, it kind of seems like all ways. I understand this is a movie podcast. I understand that you may be tuning into this and you may not live in America, so you frankly don't give a shit about what's happening here. Or you live in America and you may like what's happening here. You may disagree with me about what is happening here. Or you're just looking for an escape. You have other places you go to get information or to get that stuff out of your system, so to speak. You're coming here for fun, for wackiness, for jokes, for over-analyzing and picking apart movies, and for the depth and breadth that this show gives you in movie conversation that I don't think any other movie podcast around does. Some will give you the depth, some will give you the breadth, but we've got the length and the girth, baby. Now accepting applications from all goth mommies. See, I can mix it in. But I also feel a slight responsibility not just to entertain you, but a responsibility not to tell you what to think, not to tell you what to do, but a responsibility to speak up for what I believe is right and for people who don't have a voice. And as small as this platform is, and trust me, it is small, it is a platform, and a lot of people don't have it. And I would be a hypocrite if I would have spent most of my life studying history in university and outside of university, just for my own shits and giggles. And then in the moment when open, frank conversation, no, let me put a different spin on it. I'd be a bad American if I didn't use the right of free speech when, and specifically when, it cost me something. It also so happens that some of the people who are on our docket for this season are inherently political people, even more so than other works that we've covered, other directors, filmmakers, writers, and films that we've covered in the past. That was not by choice. It was not a decision, a conscious decision. The plans to do a show like this have to be set in motion a long time before current events. I've been working this season for a long time. And my decision to not use the platform X means that my entire network of connections to be able to find guests, book guests, and really promote this show is gone. I am at Blue Sky now. Binge Movies at Blue Sky. I don't know how that works still. But I am there, and I wish that you would be there and follow me, even though I think all of social media is probably destroying Western civilization. I'm also on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/binge movies. As far as entertainment goes and avoiding some politics, I'm doing a brand new show for patrons, our middle tier and top tier exclusively. Middle tier gets kind of a highlight reel, and the top tier gets the whole shebang, and that's called Videoland. It's me and a rotating cadre of guests watching great movies from our illustrious sections here at the video store. It could be anything. It could be horror, it could be sleaze, it could be comedy, it could be anything. And we talk about it. We provide live, so to speak, live to tape commentary for it. It's a great hang, and that show's really starting to come together, and I'm really excited about it. And that's a place where I can offer some escapism and I hope some sense of community. There's nothing better than getting together with people and watching a movie with them. I'm going to try my best not to make sure that this show doesn't just devolve into hot takes about current events, but I am going to speak to those events, and so are my guests. And some of them are probably going to offend you, potentially, and I may offend you, potentially. But I think the cost of the moment is too high not to say anything. So without much further ado, you guys have waited long enough for a new season. I just want to get to it. But before I do, I got to tell you, that Final Destination 2 got blown out by Blowout. And that banana hammock is free for VHS Summer 6, 5, whatever the fuck it is. And so Blowout is the next movie that is being added to the vault. We're going to get the episode started now. I thank you for your continued support. Thank you for waiting. It is finally time to binge on. Best artists undertake a process of revealing the subconscious through creative expression, translating the raw materials of dreams into digestible feelings and thoughts. That translation, or what we call technique, is essential to screenwriting and directing. It isn't enough to dream. One must make some sort of sense of the dreams for the outside observer. David Lynch was rarely concerned with any of that. He remained in an untranslated space, often leaving viewers feeling his work was unintelligible, and perhaps some of it is. Yet his unfiltered doses of dreams expanded the minds of traditional artists and creatives and audiences worldwide. And whether you admire his work or not, and we will interrogate that today, he was a singular dreamer, one who never felt the need to wake up. My navigator in the realm of the surreal is my favorite woman in historical South. Molly Razz. Razz, how the hell are you?
I'm living. I'm surviving. That's basically the best we could hope for.
Yeah, I say, oh, how the hell are you? But we just had a conversation off mic. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I am excited to talk about Lynch and also announce that I'm going to see 5 of his movies on the big screen. So I am very excited for that.
Film or digital?
Digital, unfortunately.
It doesn't count. I don't care. Your cinema card. Your cinema card is revoked. Your Letterboxd.
Still nice
your Letterboxd account has been deleted. Your Letterboxd account has been deleted.
I have to go all the way to Chicago to go see a 35 millimeter print. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, come on up here to the Midwest. We'll treat you right.
Oh, yeah.
Come on up here while you can before it gets bombed by Canada, will you?
Oh. I mean, we've got a Democratic governor now, so maybe we'll be okay. Maybe.
Yeah, you might. But Midwest is toast, buddy. Canada's going to be dropping those maple syrup bombs on us any day.
Yep.
And we'll have deserved it.
Yes.
Oh, Canada. I'll change an anthem. I don't care.
Not worship the royal family if I move up to Canada. I'm like, nope.
Well,
there's no King Charles in this household.
Yeah. No gods, no kings, right, Molly?
Yes.
That's right. It's a very odd thing to have an affinity and affection for somebody that you've never met. And some would call that a parasocial relationship. I have no great affinity or affection for David Lynch as a director or as a person. He is not my spirit animal. But I do have a great affinity and affection for you. And I don't know if it's mutual. I hope that it is. But I have a deep affection for you. I find you to be just an absolutely lovely soul in all of our interactions, and very funny. I don't always know that you're trying to be funny, but you are funny, and I know that you have that affinity for Lynch, and Lynch has been somebody who's always been on the list of, hey, we're going to cover David Lynch, but obviously this got accelerated because of his passing. Mm-hmm. And so we shuffled the entire order of everything around for this new season to make this the season premiere and to have you on it. So someone who I have an affinity for, a great affection for, come on to talk about someone who they have great affection for. And my contributions are going to be minimal. So you're going to have to carry the day. This is a Molly episode. And if you're going to have to talk because I don't understand anything the man's ever made. I feel as if me even trying to look, I get it. Okay. I understand sperm and babies are scary, but when we get like to a certain point, I'm like, I don't know. And also there's a limitation on the format of the show, Molly, which is when you sit down and you absorb concentrated doses of media, especially from such a idiosyncratic, already deeply concentrated. There's nothing diluted about David Lynch. It's like liquid espresso that you're supposed to water down. You know, it's that espresso concentrate you can buy at the grocery store, and they're like, "Well, you should mix this with
black
water."
Coffee would make more sense for this now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just bold black coffee
on a
black
moonless
as
night.
The night. Black as ether, oil, obsidian. It's so hot. It's been brewing all day and all night, and it doesn't care if you like its taste. Is it battery acid? Yeah, but nobody gives a fuck. That's how I feel about David Lynch. And so then to just be like, I'll have 5 cups of that in a row in about 48 hours. It's fucked me up. It
also helps to have some cherry pie or a donut on the side. That really does help.
Well, I'm rocking keto right now, so I'm not having any of that. Thanks for bringing it up. The only thing that I have less of in my life is the love of a busty bisexual woman from North Carolina is carbs. You're working on one of those. I'm working on the other.
Yes.
We'll let the audience decide. Which is which? Molly's trying to find me. Is she trying to find me donuts, or is she trying to find me a bisexual? I don't know. But
donut would be easier. North Carolina, you're getting Krispy Kreme. None of that Dunkin' Donuts. None of that Dunkachino. You're not getting that.
I'm an Ohioan. Dunkin' just got here. Well, no, Dunkin' was here in the 80s, but I don't want no Dunkachino. I have a hot take, and it's Dunkin' Donuts fucking sucks.
They do.
They suck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now,
one of my coworkers likes it, and she used to live in New York, Hudson, New York.
If you grew
that
up
is
with
why.
I would venture guess there was an era in which Dunkin' Donuts, when it was just in the Northeast, was actually probably good. They actually probably made the donuts in the shops and so forth and so on. The fact that all this stuff comes off of a truck, is frozen, comes off in a truck, is thrown into a little basket, and some lowly paid teenager with a meth addiction is trying to serve you. Maybe that's just an Ohio thing. Everybody that works at Dunkin' is definitely on opioids in Ohio. And they're serving. And here's the thing. The coffee smells good. It's so deceiving, Molly. Because you go in there and you're like, or so it's around you, and you're like, wow, that smells like good morning. I want a cup of that. Yes. And then you drink it and you're like, this is ass. This is unwashed ass. This is
You're
like
gonna get the coffee aficionados so mad.
This is like eating the ass of a heterosexual man. It's
I
unwashed.
will say the Dunkin' Donuts blend is not good. I don't like it. No, I don't like the McDonald's blend either.
But McDonald's sometimes smells good too, and you drink it and you're like, again, this is ass.
You got to go to a good cafe or something like that where you can actually get different blends and try them.
Yeah.
It's great. You can get some chocolatey blends. You can also get there's this Mexican honey press I really like, but it's seasonal. So it only comes in like a couple times out of the year. And there's also a Guatemala blend I really like. So you got to get the good blend.
And I got to provide some context for people who are maybe just tuning in for David Lynch, who don't know our history and may think that I was being creepy towards you. And I was, but it was only borderline creepy. The context of Molly and I, our relationship is that we both find the same type of women attractive. And we spent an entire summer objectifying big-breasted women from the 80s.
Analyzing. We were also analyzing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Analyzing big-breasted women from the 80s together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we discovered we had a lot of the same proclivities and tastes in women. So that's why I trust her. That's why I have such affection for her, because we kind of understand each other on that.
Mm-hmm.
We're both eccentrics who like kind of soft women in, soft dom kind of stuff and big breast.
Yeah. Women who can kick our ass are the best ones. I mean,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So that's the context of Molly and I's relationship. So if it's creepy together.
Yes. And also, we bisexual lesbian women, we should be allowed to say, hey, this girl is hot.
I agree.
I want to kiss her. And we keep,
this show is
no, you're objectifying her. It's like, no, we're not. We are attracted. We are just attracted to women, okay?
Molly, I've said since the beginning, if this show exists for anybody, it exists for bisexual / lesbian / genderqueer women to lust after other women. This is a permission
and not be shamed for it.
Not be shamed.
Yes.
God damn. There's women out there that love women. Let them
women
love
who
women.
Make you want to speak a little French, maybe. Okay.
Yeah. Now, what does this have to do with David Lynch other than the coffee reference? What it has to do with David Lynch is David Lynch ain't no Dunkin' Donuts. When you the coffee tastes like it smells, and it may smell bad depending on who you are, but it is what it is. And he puts lesbians in all of his movies.
Not all of his movies, but
all the ones we're going to talk about. Lesbians or Oedipal complexes, sex features prominently. Kinky sex, depending on how you define it, features prominently throughout the most of the 5 films we're going to talk about today. And Molly, that was not intentional.
No,
it was not intentional. It just so happened I wanted to pick a swath of his work, and a few of these I'd never seen before. So I had no way of knowing that, Blue Velvet was going to be as sexual as it was.
The movie that was so graphic that Roger Ebert was convinced that Isabella Rossellini was being exploited.
We're going to get it.
And she had to point out and say, I was not.
Yeah, we're going to get to Roger Ebert and his very strange white knighting of Isabella Rossellini.
Yes.
So let's start before that, though, with David Lynch's debut, his feature debut, from the art house to the art house, from art to, I don't know, sort of quasi-narrative films. Of course, we're talking about Eraserhead, 1977.
Oh, not 6 Men Getting Sick. That makes sense.
Yeah.
His feature films.
Yes, right. It currently has an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, Wild すべてのリンチはここから始まった。Eraserhead, 完全版。
So Eraserhead was directed by David Lynch with a screenplay by David Lynch. It's the triumphant return of Jack Nance, the eponymous Eraserhead, last seen in Ghoulies. Not the one where they go to college, though. They did come out of the toilet. This film was released March 19th, 1977. On a budget of $100,000, it went on to make $7.1 million. This is the first and last time in this episode I'm going to do a 1-sentence plot synopsis, because from here, it's damn near impossible. And it's going to be this: domestic life is hell. I have seen this movie before. I am familiar with it. I watched it again. This time, what stood out to me is all very obvious stuff. Are you ready? Here are my obvious takes, and then I'll turn it over to you and you can educate me. The civilized world is wallpaper covering twisted impulses of sexual rivalry, exploitation, and biological terror. Domesticity is the wallpaper. The home is not a happy, safe place. It is a strange and grotesque place where horrors abound. And I also think for my basic ass takes is that if it's very obvious that if you were to take the tone that he creates here, almost like literally the sound, the tone, but the mood of this piece, if you're to take that and not make it the whole thing, but extract just droplets of it, and then you were to take it and put it into a conventional narrative, that you would get in a A24 movie. I think Ari Aster's entire career is trying to normalize David Lynch. I think he is what you get when you try to take David Lynch from the subconscious to the conscious.
I mean, you could also say, you could say that they both have dabbled in the horrors of incest, so you could bring that as a cover for the domesticity as being awful.
Yes. Now here's my question. This is more of a Robert Eggers question. Is The Lighthouse Eraserhead for film bros?
I don't know, because I love both, so I'm just... And usually I don't like film bro cinema, even though now I'm starting to like some stuff. I mean, now I really like Miami Vice, so, and I used to not like it.
Oh, honey, you're a film bro. You're more of a film bro than I am. No. If there's a film bro on this podcast, it's fucking you, Molly. You're the film bro.
But I will say that this film, it really is... I do think it really does get to the subconscious of Lynch's mind at the time, because he was married and he also had his daughter, Jennifer Lynch, when she was very young. And apparently, don't quote me on this, but I think I read that she had some clubfoot issues when she was born. So
had to get surgeries. And,
it had to get surgery. And of course, that deformity would really bring up to him and probably make him feel the failures of the father of his,
at the very
himself.
least. Yeah, at the very least,
being a father.
Yeah, she's quoted as saying that's her interpretation of the movie.
Yeah, and
his
it's
own
just like,
daughter. And
how would you feel if if you made that your baby self is a deformed monster that laughs at your father's misery, like laughs at him when he's trying to get down with a woman after he can't do it because the baby just keeps making noise. The baby's just like,
yeah, I don't know. If you're his daughter, you're like, your subconscious perceived me as a deformed monstrosity that was barely held together by fabric. And then when you...
then you killed me?
Unswaddled me, my guts and everything liquefied onto the table. And then you committed infanticide.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I think maybe she should probably go to therapy.
Yes. I hope she did. She did end up directing Boxing Helena, so...
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that
Which
movie.
I only knew about because I watched Gilmore Girls, and they bring up that movie, and I was like, what is that? And the original DVD box sets, that's how old I am. I had the DVD box sets because my sister bought them. Bought them for my mom and all of us, my mom and sister and I, because we watched it. And it had like a reference booklet for you, so you could figure out what it was that they're talking about, because they made so many pop culture references in that show.
Oh my
and
God.
They actually had a little drawing of like Sherilyn Fenn just right in the box. And also Sherilyn Fenn was in not just Boxing Helena, but Gilmore Girls. And
was she really?
And so is Machen Amick. She also was in Gilmore Girls as a recurring character.
We're gonna get to
and
her,
Ray Weiss was in Gilmore Girls, the Netflix special. So there's a lot of influence of Twin Peaks on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, I think you and I are probably going to be in a similar zone when it gets to with one of those names you dropped.
Yeah,
it's going to be my guess.
Yeah. And this is the movie that not only launched his career because Mel Brooks loved it, but it was also the movie that Stanley Kubrick forced all of his cast, except for little Danny in The Shining, to watch, to prepare, because he wanted that atmosphere. He wanted that tonality in The Shining. And it really shows. It shows just that drone of dread, the father like going mad.
Do you classify this as a horror movie?
I think it is. I do really get scared. And it's kind of funny. The first time I ever watched it, I was so exhausted because I just finished working, and I got it this is how old I am. I got it through Netflix's DVD service before it was a streaming service.
Yeah.
So
you keep saying how old you are, and you're 10 years younger than me. I think we're about 10 years apart, maybe like 6 or 7, but still.
Maybe.
If you're old, what am I?
Being on Twitter has reminded me of how old I am in comparison to some other people in there. They're like, what's that? And it's just like, it's a CD player.
I'm trying to get you on a TikTok. Yeah, and you said you're not.
I can't even do Snapchat. I'm so bad at it. Think I'd be good at TikTok? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I do know how to use iMovie and Adobe Pro. Adobe Pro costs money though, and I'm not.
It does. I think if you did some of your quick, insightful, odd galaxy brain connections that you do, and just are like, oh well, blah, 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 blah. I think you could become a personality on TikTok or whatever other Chinese spying equivalent the government will allow.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Or on Red Note, Kyle MacLachlan's on there, so
that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah,
exactly.
But the first time
I watched it, I actually fell asleep, and because I was so tired. Yeah. And I don't know why. I thought I was going to be scared enough to stay awake. I was not. And my brother came in to lift me up for supper, and he comes in right as he's unwrapping the baby and killing it. And he's like, and he said, "What the fuck is this?"
You said, "It's cinema, bro.
It's cinema." Like,
this is fucking cinema.
So the first time I ever watched it for real, the full way through, was in college. And it was at a bar that had an auditorium right next to it, which is just this dark room. And it's just, this is the perfect place to watch Eraserhead.
It is actually.
Yeah. It was just like, and it was funnier than I remember it too, especially with the chicken dinner. And the chicken likes to start dancing up and down. Like, this is actually hilarious.
Well, very early, it is funny. So, okay, here are my hot takes on Eraserhead. And this is, boy, like, just burn my film reviewer credibility to the ground here. It starts off as like a very surrealist. It very much feels like the sort of movie that you would see playing on a wall in a museum. You know, you sort of walk in and it's just playing, and it's whatever the fuck the order of the thing is, it's just going to be on a loop, and it's like, you know, it's an exhibit piece as it opens and as it closes. And then it's kind of a conventional, I say conventional, it's kind of a movie for like maybe 30 minutes in between.
I think it also doesn't help that it took 4 years to shoot because they could only shoot on the weekends.
Yeah,
so,
right. Yeah.
At least that dreamy atmosphere where they're not sticking very close to a script.
Right. And so when we get to what is the semblance of a coherent narrative, it is funny, and you can see his oddball sense of humor that is going to inform Twin Peaks and, you know, the stuff that he's probably most famous for. And so you can definitely see that, and it is funny. But just like the entire time, like him, the way that he can wrench horror, true horror, out of the mundane, ordinary aspects of our life, and just basically like he's presenting to you working class American life, Northeast working class American life in particular. I think he was living in Philadelphia or had lived in Philadelphia. Yeah. As hell, as a literal nightmare, 10th circle of hellscape, the grotesqueries of the human body and what manual labor and what blue collar work does to the body, and meeting the girl you like's parents, falling in love, and her kind of being a bitch, and like before you know it, before you even maybe have even kissed her, it turns out maybe you had sex with her and she's pregnant, but she's already had the baby and the baby's in the hospital. And just how like overwhelming life, how like the conventional nuclear family and conventional, you know, heteronormativity is a nightmare. It's like basically what this is, right? They're like, sex is disgusting It's a nightmare. It's like I got real.
Well, sex is disgusting, but you still want it.
But you still want it. Yeah, yeah. I got real Gnostic vibes. Like, does this guy hate the material universe? Does he see the flesh, the human flesh, as inherently like some kind of degradation, to the transcendental self?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Has anybody ever? I mean, you get into film scholarship, and I try to avoid it not because I don't respect it, but because I'm trying to. If I come to conclusions that film scholarship has, I kind of want to get there organically and over the course of the show. I'm trying to be like the neutral viewer, like my audience who just goes in and just watches the movie.
Well, with Lynch, it's also because you have to kind of imprint your own worldview in it because he was closed. He didn't tell you what it was. He would, the interview, just like, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film. Elaborate on that. No. And which other people think that it's because he discovered transcendental meditation during the filming of that film. But which, could also be a point. But it's also, you do have to think about that. And you do have to put your own worldview in it because because he won't explain it. And that's why. But it's kind of like a magician. They don't want to explain how they do their tricks because that just ruins the trick.
Yeah. You're right. And I think that's where I'm getting at with like, this is his influence is so very obvious on the film bros who would grow up to become the quote unquote elevated horror guys, which is like, they're definitely, it's like a lot of these guys, it's if you could take the idiosyncratic nature of David Lynch, maybe strain it through Cronenberg or Carpenter, you would get a lot of the neon / A24 independent horror cinema of the Robert Eggers and the Ari Asters. I'm not saying they're not doing their own thing. I think they're doing their own thing as well. But it's her dad coming home and just blathering on and talking and just sort of the way he walks and the kind of inherent absurd humor of it and watching him, the guy, Frank, is that his name?
Yeah, I think that's.
Sitting there watching the whole thing and like his horrified expression of just having to meet this girl's dad.
Oh, Henry.
That's right. And the dad being such a fucking weirdo and just the way that they talk and like the way they're talking about those chickens and like, oh, they're new. Like, because they're obviously some kind of domesticated biological corporate product. They're not organic. They're not real, right? They're not, there's some kind of product of industrial meat, capitalism, and then they start menstruating on the plate and then the mom is orgasming as the chickens are menstruating. Or maybe giving birth, who knows? And then she starts to weep and goes into and you're like, oh, this is a horror movie. This is a flat out psychological horror film that you could also maybe laugh at if you're a sicko.
Like me.
I laughed at some of it, but it's like it could be taken kind of either way. It's both funny and scary. It's very strange, and I think that's a tone that you pick up with in Ari Aster's and Robert Eggers' work. In particular, those two guys come top of mind. They're not the only ones, but so I find myself sometimes when I'm watching Lynch disassociating because there's so little at certain points to tether yourself to.
Yeah.
And to me, that's okay in short doses. To have nothing to tether myself to. I'm fine living in abstraction. I live there most of the time anyway. But after, 90 minutes, I kind of need something. And I feel like Eraserhead strikes a bit more of balance from the completely surreal and woo-woo. And now it's just light and sound and with real odd sensory noises and shit to some kind of a discernible plot.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, at least for me, Eraserhead is one of those ones where I think you could make a kind of an effort, and we already did, to try to decipher, why are we stomping sperm? Why does he want to fuck that lady in the radiator? Who is she? Why is she so cruel to sperm? Obviously, that's like his perception of her, right? And so there's obviously like the battle of the sexes is sort of in this movie, and
well, technically, she's kind of the first Chanteuse that he obsesses over, because he does love having these Chanteuse characters that almost need rescuing or saving in some points, especially with Blue Velvet and Mulholland
but who
Drive.
are also dangerous.
Yes.
Right? So I was wondering how far we could get into this, talking about the Madonna horror complex, but I'm sure you're going to bring it up here. So anyway, so what else do you have to say about Eraserhead? Because I think this is a very strong starting point. It's an extraordinarily influential film.
Yes.
It's obviously gave him his career, but I think it kind of rewrote the rules of, I certainly don't think he set out to do this in 1977, but I think he accidentally rewrote the rules of what horror movies were going to be. It took a while, I think, for people to catch up with him, but even by the time we get to the 90s, his influence on horror movies starts to become evident.
Well, even just Shining, The Shining right there.
There you go. Right.
Just like a year after.
Right.
It was that influential.
Especially when you think about like Ari Aster, there's obviously a lot of Kubrick there too. And so the idea that Eraserhead kind of what he's doing there sort of mixes in with what Kubrick was already doing with those sort of long, still shots of just the camera in a fixed position, flatly shooting things to an uncomfortable length of time, which he'd already been doing. But then you add in that drone, that's one of the things that this movie and some of his other films are famous for, is that he just has this discordant, not quite ambient drone that just sits throughout the movies.
And Lynch, I believe, composed that himself, because he was an amateur composer as well. So,
correct me if I'm wrong. Did movies do that before this movie? Just odd mechanical sounds, just nonstop, relentlessly in the background.
I don't think all the time, but I think there were some. I remember a few in the film Night of the Demon, which was 1960s British horror film.
Okay.
That was not Hammer, which is surprising, but
just to carpet wall to wall, right? Of just clanking and weird, just.
I don't think not the whole time. No.
No. So yeah, he just kind of maximalized it, I guess. Is it sacrilege to you to assign these some sort of score and rank?
It does a bit, but I think we'll probably have to anyway. But I think we all would both agree what is the worst one. But
I don't. Maybe.
Oh, are you going to surprise me?
I don't know. I'm in uncharted waters here, Molly.
Oh.
It's like a straight man using a bidet. He doesn't know what he's doing.
No.
Yeah. How's this work? Okay. If I have to give this a score, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's my number 3 out of these 5. How about you?
I would say mine would be about like an 8 or an 8.5, especially with just how influential it is.
Yeah.
And mine's pretty high up, but I'm trying to think. That would probably be like 4 for me.
And of all 5, this is only the 4th best?
Well, we're going through Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Dune, Eraser.
Not Dune.
Not Dune. Then I can't choose. That was my worst one.
We're doing Eraserhead, Elephant Man, Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, and Mulholland Drive.
Not the straight story either.
No. Not doing all of them. We got 5.
All right, then. So then it's probably third for me. Okay.
Okay. All right.
It probably is
All right.
third for me as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. It's time to
I was
move on.
thinking the whole gamut.
Maybe we could do a part 2. Let's do 1980's Elephant Man, which was his next film, which currently has a 93% on Rotten.
They called him the Elephant Man.
Why you're in, David?
He was deformed beyond reason, grotesque beyond understanding, ridiculed beyond endurance, and courageous beyond measure. The Elephant Man, the film, rated PG.
Starts Friday exclusively at the Regent Westwood.
This is one of the few movies that he didn't write. It's a screenplay by Christopher DeVore and Eric Bergeron, and David Lynch gets a writing credit on it. But the script had already been around. And to your point, this is the movie that Mel Brooks saw. Mm-hmm. Mel Brooks wanted to make this movie and was the producer on it and was sort of developing it with a screenplay by these two guys. And it was based off this. It was adapted from a stage play, a Tony Award-winning stage play, which many people have performed, including David Bowie, who would go on to be Philip Jeffries, and hilariously Bradley Cooper. And he does this great face. I highly recommend Googling it. He does this great face to simulate the Elephant Man's tumors on his face. It's great. Just look it up. Yeah. And so Brooks doesn't put his name on the movie because he doesn't want people to think it's a comedy, because he's still in that place where he's transitioning to. Which he also did with The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is based on The Elephant Man and Other Reminiscence by Frederick Treves. Yeah, Treves. And then The Elephant Man, A Study in Human Dignity by Ashley Montague. It is the triumphant return of Anthony Hopkins, who was last seen in the deplorable Hannibal. Mm-hmm. It's a triumphant return of John Hurt, who is the eponymous Elephant Man, who was seen in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's a triumphant return of Freddie Jones, not seen since the days of young Sherlock Holmes. Mm-hmm. The film was originally released October 10th, 1980, on a budget of $5 million. It made $26 million. Mm-hmm. I probably could write a synopsis for The Elephant Man, but instead I want to reserve that time for a bit of a rant. But let me get some positive things about this movie out of the way, and then I'll have my little rant here. Okay. This film had 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Actor. It received some criticism for failing to honor, the Academy received criticism, rather, for failing to honor makeup effects, which forced the Academy to create a new category for Best Makeup Effects. Mm-hmm. The film won the BAFTA for Best Film, Best Actor, Best Production Design, and it was nominated for several Golden Globes. It won the French César Award for Best Foreign Film. Mm-hmm. And this is a movie that, if nothing else, because of its high critical acclaim, if you grew up in the 1980s into the 1990s, very frequently parodied was some of the music that appears in this film and other films. Yes. And the particular line, "I am not an animal, I am a human being." And that showed up all over the place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That being said, this movie is damn near impossible to find. Criterion did a 2020 4K release of it. Mm-hmm. Completely sold out. It's like $155, $175 for the Criterion now. Oh, geez. I have my copy right here. I should have got one for my sister. You have to go in the secondary market. The same transfer, I believe, because when you get into the world of like who gets to transfer what and who gets to use the transfer, it gets real weird. Because some of these boutique labels, they will fund the transfer themselves. They will pay for the remaster and for the transfer. And then to recoup the expense of that, they will then let other distributors in other markets use that transfer. They license the transfer, right? Yeah. So I think Criterion did the 4K remaster, but I think they've licensed that transfer out to some European labels. Mm-hmm. So you can find a European 4K for like $20. Yeah. Which is not bad. but you need a 4K player, obviously.
Yeah.
And the Blu-ray is not going to be region free because Blu-rays aren't. So you'll be able to watch the 4K in your 4K player because those are native region free, which means you can watch movies from anywhere in the world as long as they're 4K.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try to put a region B Blu-ray into a region A Blu-ray player, it'll lock up. It's not going to read it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a 4K TV to get any value out of it. Whatever. Okay.
And a region-free player as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which I recommend to any cinephile. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yes. Okay. It's not streaming anywhere. It's not on Google Play. It's not on Apple TV. You will find it advertised on all of those services, on Amazon Prime, everywhere. But when you go to rent it, it's not available.
Not available in your region, you mean?
But I also searched the UK. I used a VPN, and I went around the fucking world. And there are only a couple of places where you can rent it digitally.
Oof.
And I tried to do it with a VPN, but because my credit card has an American address, they wouldn't let me process the rental.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, and they wouldn't let me do it. So it's like, well, you're in the UK, but your credit card has to be in the UK. Yeah. So, and I ordered this on 4K, but because I'm importing it from another fucking country because it's coming from Finland or some shit, it still isn't here. So I was able to watch this movie for the first time in my adult life in its entirety. I have seen parts and pieces of it. I don't think I'd ever seen the entire thing.
Oh.
I had to find it in the most ass-backwards, clandestine way. So the print, if you want to call it that I've seen of it, was not good. The transfer was not good.
Oh.
But I watched it.
Yes.
And what I want to say is I don't know what hellscape we're starting to live in on very many fronts. But when you have a movie that was so widely beloved, celebrated, was a box office success, it was a awards darling, just not even 50 years ago, became pop culture synonymous by one of the most influential, strange, and great directors of all time, at least of the 20th century, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And it is his most accessible, mainstream, comprehensible film. It's for the normies. This movie is for the normies.
Except that you can't the straight story, which is also harder to find, but at least you can purchase it through imprint Blu-ray for like $30 because that is region free. But the DVD, I tried to check for the DVD for the straight story, and it's like $60.
This is what I'm saying. And here's the thing. David Lynch is not I'm going to be ethnocentric here for a second. David Lynch is not some European French New Wave director who directed a movie. This movie is not from 75 years ago.
No.
And he never really had much critical acclaim in the U.S. This man made fucking Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. This is an American movie by American producers. It was a Paramount picture. It's not available on Paramount Plus. What the fuck are we doing? What is the point?
At least you could say the straight story is on Disney Plus. At least they did that.
There you go. But like, what's the point of all these streaming services and all of this media consolidation if you can't even find The Elephant Man?
This is why Netflix was so much better as a DVD service.
Because
that's how I first watched this film. I watched it as well on a DVD that they sent us. And my sister and I, we both watched it. It was the first film I can say that made me cry 3 times. And one of the few that ever has.
Now, let's get to the movie itself. Does the movie deserve all that ranting and raving on my behalf now coming to it as an adult man? Because there are people who are very cynical about this movie that prefer, they see it as kind of maybe David Lynch's dumbest movie or something to that effect. It's because it's a true to life story, telling of a real person's life. They see it as like a step down for him, because it's a very literal movie, even though he still puts his oddball shit in the beginning and the end. I don't give a fuck about any of that. All I know is that this movie takes 32 minutes before we see Merrick's face. We see the full makeup effect. And if there was anybody who was the right person at the right time to make this movie, and I think you have to credit Mel Brooks for the vision of seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watched Eraserhead, you're like, this guy's going to make a adaptation of a stage play of the Elephant Man. Like it on the surface, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But what Mel Brooks saw, and what is so very obvious, is this guy understands that ordinary people, quote unquote, are the real monsters.
Mm-hmm.
That society, we live in a society,
yes.
but society, low rent society, high class society, and everywhere in between is full of fucking assholes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're monstrous, and human beings are monstrous to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when you present this profoundly enlightened soul in Merrick up against Anthony Hopkins' doctor who is exploiting him, and to what degree is he being exploited at this hospital is the question of the movie, and it's never 100% answered to us for us. No. And obviously the exploitation of being a sideshow freak, and like I yes, there would be a million rip-offs of this in the 90s when every actor would want to play somebody with some kind of an impairment or disability.
Yes.
And have modeling speeches and somebody who'd been an outcast and cruelly treated by the world was going to be the one to bring us wisdom from on high, and that's going to get the normies to be more compassionate. And this movie got dumbed down. Yeah. And I understand all that. And yes, there's adagio for strings in this movie. And yes, that's the music from Platoon and Seinfeld and every other overly modeling scene or in parody of those types of scenes. Yes, this movie is David Lynch normcore. This is as close, one of the few movies that gets as close to him just sort of dropping the tip. This is the non-Lynchian film. I don't care. Because I think this movie is a masterpiece. It is shot. It's one of his best shot films that I've seen. It is obviously the inspiration from German expressionist kind of work and the light and the shadow and the contrast. And there is a sort of ripple effect from movies, even like the original Nightmare Alley and Freaks and all that stuff that shows up in here. And obviously this is him really kind of embracing a lot of European sensibilities of European cinema, but at the same time, Molly, this is a conventional. This is what big studio, character-driven movies used to be, and he makes it. He proves with this movie that he's not making the weird shit because he can't make a conventional movie. He just chooses not to. He could have made 10 more of these, and they all would have been good. It's because I think in certain circles also Lynch kind of gets a rap. And if you look at some of the contemporaneous reviews of his work after Twin Peaks, the show, the consensus seems to be for a while, it's like, okay, we get it. We're kind of sick of this. Like, don't you got something else? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of, right? It's just you're just kind of doing the same shtick over and over again. But this movie in particular proves that he didn't have to. He could have been a more conventional director. It's his choice not to be. It's not for a lack of ability or structure. He can make a structured film. He just didn't give a shit about that most of his career.
I think it's the question of just like the world isn't comprehensible itself, so why should my movies be? And he's got a point. There is a point to asking those questions that why do I have to make a comprehensive narrative if the world itself is not comprehensible, if we have constant questions that are unanswerable? And that's what Lynch digs into and does really well with these works.
Yeah, but the empathy and humanity that he's able to
the
bring,
empathy.
You see it elsewhere in his
Yeah.
stuff. But there is a kind of a cruelty sometimes in his movies
Mm-hmm.
as well, a cruelty of perspective. And we'll get into that with sometimes his depiction of some of those female characters you were talking about, some of those, you know, Madonna horror kind of figures that he obsesses over, these sort of femme fatale ingenue muses, this sort of love-hate, weird Oedipal complex that he has, where it's like, you have to be my mommy and my whore, you know? But I'm also afraid of you because you're a monster underneath all that flesh. It's like, that's all in his work, but
I don't feel that is in his work, but unlike a lot of directors, I don't think he wants the audience to think that way. I think he wants us to realize that this is what the men in his movies think, and that reflects a lot of men in the world. And in a lot of film noir that he's taking from, it was basically it was reflecting a lot of that, especially with the femme fatale. Femme fatale, that they're the whores and they will ruin your life sort of thinking. And that, when she's punished, you're going to be celebrating. When in his films, in David Lynch's films, he's not seeing it like that. He's seeing that if men think like that, then their worldview is wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. And his incisive eye, I think like one of the gifts that he has, and it's on display in this movie, is just like he cuts through the veneer of domestic life to reveal the horrors of Eraserhead. He is cutting through the veneer of polite society in this movie. And saying, no, this guy who is burdened and tumorous and can't even lay his head down to rest because it'll kill
break his
him.
Neck.
Is not the freak. Right?
It is the society itself who exploits him that does.
He's not even really the sick one.
Yeah,
right?
No.
They're all the sickos.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, even just thinking about it, and thinking about, obviously, John Hurt's performance, who's also passed.
Yeah.
Is okay. I know this movie, even though I hadn't seen it in its entirety. So I know that John Hurt's, I know his performance. I know that he is going to speak. I know that he is going to cry out. I know that he is articulate. I know that he is soft-natured and he likes poetry and nature walks. And I know that because this movie was just in the zeitgeist. It was just in pop culture, right? And yet I was still stunned by the fact, even though I knew that, the movie somehow lulled me into forgetting that. So that I'm in the same place as judging Merrick as Anthony Hopkins is, which just is, clearly some sort of imbecile that is developmentally delayed. Imbecile is the term that they use, that we're going to have to teach and coach and feign some kind of intelligence in, and maybe if we really work with him on phonetics, that he'll be able to understand. And just where that scene goes, and then where it turns to where he quotes this long, florid prose passage of scripture of the Psalms, and is obviously someone who has an incredible appreciation for beauty. And the way they choose to characterize Merrick as somebody who almost not just despite, but almost because of his deformities, is someone who is, and his Oedipal complex, because I can't get away from that.
Nope.
Is somebody who can't help but see beauty in other people and in the world, even in places where it may not exist, which makes him better than us, but also vulnerable.
Yeah.
He's vulnerable in the world, not just because of his physical impairments, but because it's almost like he's too innocent for this world. He's too good.
He's kind of like a Prince Mishkin figure from the book The Idiot, where he's kind of like this
Too
Christ-like
pure.
figure, but he's just, because of that, he's too innocent to live in this world, and so the world drives him mad.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's heart-wrenching the way that he is treated.
Mm-hmm.
It is heartwarming the way that he's rescued by other so-called freaks when later in the film, when he's taken back he's stolen from his home where he has started to feel loved, or even the nurses at the hospital who were originally completely terrified of him and his physical appearance and didn't want to take care of him have genuinely warmed to him and have grown in a way, in a realistic way, to have love for him and to be protective towards him.
Yeah.
And then for him to be, and even Anthony Hopkins questioning his own motives and what kind of man am I? What kind of doctor am I? What kind of person, and it's like, then it's just a heart-wrenching movie because by the time that these people start to see his value, he's so grateful for the love that he feels that he's then ripped out of that love, that home, that womb, and put back into this absolutely disastrous, bleak, horrendous existence. And rather than save themselves because they don't feel like they can, they're like, at least we can get you home. And that's awful.
Yes,
when they put him on that ship and you're like, why don't you just get on a ship with him? But they can't.
No.
There's nowhere for them to go.
No.
And so, oh my God. I'm tearing up even just thinking about it, And this movie is a famous tearjerker.
Yes.
And it doesn't nullify its effects.
No.
And sometimes, when you know that the movie's going to play your heartstrings, it doesn't have that effect on you. This movie, it just does. Lynch has so much love for Merrick that you can't help but love him. And then John Hurt is able to embody this performance.
And it's still such a shame he didn't win. And he was told that he wasn't going to win. And John Hurt asked why with one of the producers who told him that. And he said, well, they can't see your face. And it's true. That's what happened. They couldn't see his face, even though he gave the best performance of all the nominations.
I feel like, because I feel like
if he gave that performance now, then maybe he would have gotten it, because we did see that with Brendan Fraser with The Whale, which is like an awful version of The Elephant Man.
well, it's okay. That's exactly where I was going to go with it. Right? Is that the Academy has these makeup things, right? They don't give you the award for the movie you should get it for. They give it down the line, right? Because they're like, oh, we fucked up. So okay, Denzel.
Brendan Fraser was not bad. It's just the part in the the movie was just bad.
Yeah. So I think what happens too, though, is they go, oh, we really fucked up by not honoring John Hurt. So now we're going to give an award to any actor who performs in a movie about some kind of disability.
It has lots of prosthetics too, or loses a ton of weight.
That's right. If you gain or lose a ton of, that's right.
And just like John Hurt was really struggling at times. He had to train to do with that because they took the mold from Joseph Merrick from Merrick's real skull that's still on display.
Well, yeah, we got to get there too.
Which Michael Jackson wanted to buy after this movie, by the way. Which thank God they did not sell it to him.
Yes. So Merrick's bones are as part of a museum under special care, and yet they're viewable by appointment only. And people have made the argument almost since the time that this guy actually died that since he was a Christian, that his bones should be buried where his skin was buried, because after they did a bunch of biopsies, because he had all these, he essentially never stopped the tumors and bone malformations. Didn't stop until the day he died, right? It just kept growing and growing and growing. It was a progressive disease. And so they eventually, like, after they did a bunch of biopsies and took chunks of him. They took what was left of his skin and buried it into a hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his grave. And people are like, this guy deserves to get his bones back for a proper Christian burial.
Mm-hmm.
And this came up again not that long ago. If you remember, it was in the news maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be longer than that because 5 years ago was COVID. What the fuck? But it's been within the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the university's just like, no, his bones belong to us. And I don't know. I think it's been almost 100 years. Can you just give the man some dignity and let him be buried?
I mean, they've got lots of people's skulls on display. I'm just like, it depends if Merrick signed something or like approved his bones to be there. But if he didn't, he should be buried. I think he should be buried.
Yeah. And yes, Adagio for Strings. Yes. It's so cliche. But this is the movie one of the movies that sort of created that cliche.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It just does. It fucking does. And you're like, because there's such an empathy and tragedy in that piece of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's why when our boy Willem Dafoe's getting blown the fuck apart in Platoon, why you cry there too, right? He's the only sane guy in that war, the only man with any moral compass, just being blown apart because of the fuckery of his own platoon. Like again, it's like perfect piece of music for that. It's a perfect piece of music here. Lynch did it first, by the way.
Yes,
he beat Oliver Stone. So, my frustration with this movie should be findable anyways. This is a major studio release by a major American director. You ought to be able to find this fucking movie in America.
Yes. Open access, please.
What the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck? You ought to be able to see this movie in America. You ought to be able to own it. Even if it's just, this is ridiculous.
It needs to come back in print.
Yes.
They need to work on it. Hopefully it'll come back in print soon because I need to get a copy for my sister now that I realize that,
Yeah. You and I have talked about Criterion before. We did an episode in the Criterion collection. And I think like younger generations don't really understand that Criterion collection is nothing more than almost like the original boutique label.
Yes.
Because when home video was really becoming a market, the foreign cinema and independent cinema was not really being released in home video.
Yeah.
And so Joe Medchuk, who was just a normal Hollywood producer, he produced such movies as Ghostbusters, actually took some of the money from his hit movies with another guy and said, we think there's a market here, not just to release movies, but to release movies for, they typically at that time, they only played in art house theaters or on college campuses and revival screenings, right?
Yeah.
So if you were a university student, if you were a film student, there was like, you were in America, there's a good chance you were never going to see a movie by anything, the Janus Corp ever distributed.
And you had to really struggle. I mean, George, there's this famous trivia that George Romero and Martin Scorsese were living close together in the same borough, and they would go to the one video store in Brooklyn, and it would actually have all the Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburg's films on 16 millimeter print films. You had to rent the print, and most people didn't own a projector, but they did, and they would actually, so they would realize just like, and they would try every month to rent out the Tales of Hoffman, and they had to watch that on a and at first they had to watch it on a black and white television screen because a lot of British films were sent over for TV's companies to let them screen because it was cheaper than most American films.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
So, and then they would rent that 16 millimeter film of the Tales of Hoffman, and they were like, this is actually Technicolor. But they didn't know that the one was renting the other. So and it was only one other person that rented. It was either going to be George Romero or Martin Scorsese. And so when it was out, they're like, Martin would be like, oh, that guy again, he got the movie. And then George Romero, when Martin has it, he'd be like, dang it again.
Okay, so that's incredible.
Yes.
And I wish the piece of memorabilia I want from the video store is I want some kind of a slip that has both their fucking names. I want receipts to go that long gone for Romero.
I'm pretty sure that's
Scorsese.
what it was on the. I'm not even sure that video, it probably does not exist anymore. So
No,
it's probably
hell no.
tossed out, but it's just like, imagine if a former employee there kept that because it had Martin Scorsese and George Romero's signature on it. And just like, George Romero, Tales of Hoffman.
Right.
Marty Scorsese, Tales of Hoffman. Again.
That's a piece of memorabilia that I would want.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that to your point though, that's how even in a artsy fartsy place like Brooklyn with access to most culture.
Yes.
These filmmakers, up and coming for sure, were struggling to be able to procure any semblance of foreign films.
Yeah.
So Criterion became a boutique label to say, okay, we're going to bring in Asian cinema and we're going to bring in European cinema. We're going to bring in midnight movies and whatnot, and these movies, these smaller films for cinephiles, essentially. It's not
the first
like
one to have director's commentaries, because
that's right.
They didn't have that in which VHS is, but they could have it on Laserdisc, which Criterion was the boutique label for.
That's you're spot on. So I think that some people like they view Criterion almost as if it's like I don't know, like some sort of authoritative list of the best movies that have ever been made. And I think
it's not always the case, I will say. No, but
no, it is a boutique home video label that has grown in reputation because it's heavily curated. But also because for so many years, they were the only American distributors of the French New Wave and all kind of other stuff. So Italian cinema.
Seven Samurai was...
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa.
All the great films.
Jean Rene, those people.
Yeah.
Oh, Jean Reno.
Yeah. So I'm glad that they had a 4K release of The Elephant Man.
Yes.
I wish that it wasn't sold out. They're very particular. And the thing is, they only have the rights to these movies for a chunk of time.
Yeah, especially if it's Studio Canal is what I've noticed. Just like...
Yes.
Oh, if it has Janus, it's not going out of print because that's their partner company. So
Right.
But if it says like Studio Canal, that's when I'm like, oh, I need to get this. Like that's why we lost Pierre LeFou, and that's why we don't have Ron back on there. So
is that why we don't have Armageddon back on there? Is that a Studio Canal?
I think it's a Universal one. Universal took out a bunch too, as well. They also, Universal, once they started making Paramount
Yes.
Plus, not the Paramount Plus, the Paramount.
No, you're right. Paramount Plus.
No, it was a no, I think it was Universal or something like that. They wanted to bring in their own store label, but it still hasn't done well. That's why you can't get Nashville anymore, and you can't get Harold and Maude. And yeah, Harold and Maude, they do have it on Blu-ray, but it's like a Paramount thing, and it's not as good as Criterion's version. And same with Nashville.
Right. Yeah, so now we're in the same boat with this Paramount movie that is also somehow licensed through Studio Canal, which is The Elephant Man. And I bring all that up to say that if there's one movie on this list I think everybody should watch, it is The Elephant Man. And that's why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Woo.
And it is my number one of the week, and I would say it's a masterpiece, which is not a word I use very often.
I would say, about 8.5, 9. And actually, I'm going to move Eraserhead down one and make Elephant Man number 3.
Okay, that's why I love you. I chose the normie path. And you're going to choose probably the kinky path. Does that mean she's choosing 1986's Blue Velvet as the best? It currently has a 91% Rotten Tomatoes. We're about to find out right now.
Blue Velvet is a movie that really challenges you to think about your reactions to it. And my reaction is, I think this movie is cruelly unfair to its actors. It was directed by David Lynch, the same man who made Eraserhead and Dune, and he's a talented director. You can see that here in scenes that have a lot of power. But he asked Isabella Rossellini in this movie to be undressed and humiliated on the screen, as few actresses ever have been, certainly in non-porno roles. And then he tries to take the edge off her shocking scenes by turning the whole thing into some kind of a joke. Well, either this material is funny, in which case you don't take advantage of your stars, or it isn't funny, in which case it shouldn't have so much campy and adolescent dialogue along with the really powerful sexual scenes. Sure, the movie's well made, but the more I thought about it, the less I liked it.
Well, I liked it, and I thought about it a lot, and I think you may be on the wrong tack in trying to feel sorry for Isabella Rossellini, because after all, she consented to do what she did on the screen, number one. Number two, I'm sure she's walking around wherever she lives, New York City or whatever, and survived the whole experience, just like Janet Leigh survived the shower scene in Psycho. So I don't think that that's pertinent. I think what's exciting about the film, and it is challenging, is it starts out with flowers and sunlight, and it's a happy little town, and then we dig deeper and we find out it's a nasty town, or at least a couple of people are nasty. And I sat there, and this did for me, and I use the Psycho example again, this did for me what Psycho did as a lot younger, which is eyes open and, oh my God, we're really getting in over our heads. And that's an experience which is challenging, shocking, but mesmerizing, and I like the picture.
It's a triumph return of Kyle MacLachlan, last seen in so many movies I don't know.
And in Dune.
Oh yeah, I always
which
say
we're not talking about, so it can't be the worst, which it is.
Ooh, I don't think so. I had a hot take. I kind of like Lynch's Dune.
I think that's the one Lynch film. Like, I don't like this film. I don't.
Oh, I got a couple. It is Kyle MacLachlan, The Hidden, Isabella Rossellini, Roger Ebert's White Knight.
Yes.
What's a White Knight for? What's a cape? He's caping for Isabella Rossellini. She played the grandma grandma in Marcella Shell with Shoes On.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper, last seen in Apocalypse Now. Laura Dern, last seen in Jurassic Park 3. Dean Stockwell.
And one of her first big roles. She was only 19. She was a baby.
I know that she's 19 in this movie.
Yes.
She's never not looked 30.
She has always kind of looked like that, but now, because of that, she still looks like she's in her 30s and she's in her 50s.
That's what I'm saying. She looked 30 in 1986. And she kind of looks like she's in her, maybe 35 now at most, and 45 years have gone by. And Dean Stockwell from Tucker, A Man in His Dream.
Yes.
This film was released September 19th, 1986, on a budget of $6 million. It made $8.6 million. I know this movie inside and out. I don't think I'd ever seen it until I watched it for the show. Is that surprising to the binge lords? It's probably because of all the movies he's directed, the one that I think most people would probably associate with me would be a movie like Blue Velvet. Like, oh yeah, that's a movie Jason would watch, sort of a neo-noir starring Kyle MacLachlan with Dean Stockwell, who played Admiral Al Calavici from Quantum Leap. And no, I don't think I'd ever see. I knew about the Ether. I knew about the S&M. I knew about the weird lip syncing that Dean Stockwell does. I knew about the strange plot this movie has and all the weird directions it goes in. And like I said earlier, I don't typically engage in scholarly consensus to find my reviews. I watch films and draw my own conclusions. And the conclusion that I draw from Blue Velvet is that someone wanted to fuck, marry, kill their own mom. It's all three are in this movie. If you ever wanted Dennis Hopper to get down on his hands and knees, huffing ether and begging to see a woman's vagina and then shoving her underwear into his mouth and calling her mommy, let me see it, mommy. Oh, mommy, let me see it. And then slapping the shit out of her and don't look at me because he's so ashamed of his own impotence, sexuality, his own desire to be dominated.
He's
perhaps
shaming himself. Okay.
And Molly and I are like, be free. Get your spanking.
Be free, but don't have a sex slave with it. Have a consenting partner.
Yeah.
Do not kill a woman's husband and steal her son to make her your sex slave. Okay, that's too far.
Okay, for the record, we're not saying cut a man's ear off and then take his wife as a sex slave. That's not the freedom we're advocating for. we're saying if you want to get smacked around a little bit, or have a woman shove her panties in your mouth, find a consenting partner and don't shame yourself or her for doing it.
Yeah.
And if you want to have vanilla sex, don't shame yourself for that either. Just have missionary and call it a day.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Do you?
Yeah.
And do somebody else as long as they want to be done.
Exactly. Consent is the best. It's the best.
Consent is the aphrodisiac of the sane people. Yes. Yeah. So this is a really horny fucking movie. Mm-hmm. And I knew that going into it. And we've talked about this before. We talked about this with Andy Sedaris. We talked about, are these movies being made to arouse us, to titillate us, right? Mm-hmm. And our consensus on like a lot of the Andy Sedaris movies were, it maybe didn't seem like it. And if it was, it wasn't successful. We were not typically aroused by women sort of soaping their breast for 90 odd seconds in a shower, right? Mm-hmm. Like, no, we weren't really aroused by that.
Yeah, you got a woman with that.
A woman with nunchucks oiled up, glistening with her muscles. Okay, that's a different story. Thick thighs save lives. Molly and I are on board with that. Mm-hmm. This movie is arousing. I find.
Depends on the scene, I will say.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. You keep clarifying. I am not saying that the torture scenes are arousing. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that there is some sexual arousing material in here. Mm-hmm. And even then, you kind of find yourself. I'll speak for myself. I think it's successful at putting me to some extent into the shoes of Kyle MacLachlan's character. Even after the fact that I'd been following him for 40 minutes and didn't understand why the fuck he was doing anything that he was doing. But the moment he's in that closet, I still don't understand it. I find it creepy. I find it sick. I find it disturbing. Right. And it's just been going on and on and on of like, why does this guy give a shit? Why does this guy give a shit about some case? Like, who is he? What is he interested in? Because Laura Dern's character we get all kind of nice poetical insights about her dreams and perhaps her prophetic inclinations about danger in the world and, you know, all this stuff. And we get insight into what she wants and who she is and all this stuff. And then his response in every scene is, wow, that's really neat. Mm-hmm. And then we get nothing. We get no insight in this guy. It's almost as if there is nothing to have insight into. He is just empty. He's this grown man who is wanting to date a high school girl. Like, I know he's supposed to be like kind of recently graduated, right? He's only like a couple years ahead of her, but because he remembers her and he's like, oh, well, what grade are you in now? And it's kind of akin to George Bailey and Donna Reeve. And
it is a little bit, yeah. And of course, Frank Capra is a huge influence on David Lynch. So
yeah, but at the same time, she's got a football player boyfriend. But we spent a lot of time in the upfront of this movie, seemingly going nowhere, really going nowhere. And then he's like, I'm gonna take this high school girl to this flop house because there's a name of a woman that came up and that may be related to the investigation of this thing. And I've been spying on these guys and there might be a cop involved, maybe not. And it's just it's a really strange thing to be like, we're going to make a detective noir, neo-noir detective film, but it's going to be this recent high school graduate who still wants to fuck high school chicks. Is going to be
he's really grown up, but he wants to also be an adult, obviously. I
get that, but also Kyle MacLachlan looks like a 40-year-old man, so it's got like a Pee Wee Herman effect. Where
I think that was also an issue with me with him playing Paul Atreides because he's 24 in the film.
He's always had an old guy face.
Older too. It's the same thing with Laura Dern, but Laura Dern, it's okay. With him, it's just like with Paul Atreides. You're like, oh, and that's why when I was watching with Timothée Chalamet, I was like, he's too young for this. But I remember, oh wait, Paul Atreides is like 19 at the beginning.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
He's
book,
like the actual age. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, though. I think the fact that Laura Dern does look so much older is the only thing that keeps it from being real creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had somebody who looked 19 years old next to Kyle MacLachlan, even if he was 19,
Yes.
based on the way his face looks, he looks like a 38-year-old man. So if there's a 38-year-old man, if there's Pee Wee Herman following this lounge singer and peeping on her in the closet and then wanting to have sex with a high school girl, it takes what is already a disturbing movie and it would make it almost unenjoyable for me at all.
I think it's because it's also bringing up a connection with Dennis Hopper's character and Kyle MacLachlan's character with Jeffrey and those ideas that they do desire the same women, and they both, and it could take and they're both voyeurs, obviously, but it could just take one flip of the switch and Jeffrey could become just as monstrous as Frank. And that's terrifying to reflect on. And that's what Lynch was getting to, I believe.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the Madonna whore, and there is this setup where Laura Dern's character is the virginal blonde with sort of the 1950s almost like pinup looks, but not like the sexy pinup, the girl next door pinup looks. Mm-hmm. Then we have Isabella Rossellini, who is the foreign, dark, older, smoky, sultry slut, right?
And it makes you think for a while that, oh my gosh, it's just like she's going to lead him down this dark path, and she is just a femme fatale. She's a whore who is going to basically manipulate him, and then it turns out, no, she's the victim out of all of this because her husband was killed. And her son is kidnapped where she doesn't know where. And the only way to keep him alive is to give in to the sexual demands of this monster with Frank.
Yeah. And I think that you're on the money. He's really playing around with the duality of innocence versus corruption. And who do we perceive as being innocent versus who do we perceive as being corrupt, right? Mm-hmm. And really he wants to make you uncomfortable with what Kyle MacLachlan's character is doing.
Yes.
And I think he wants us almost to yell at the screen of like, what the fuck are you doing?
Dude.
Grow up. What is wrong with you? Grow up. Go to the cops. Get out of this.
Yes.
Don't go, leave this woman alone. Mm-hmm. Stop interfering in this, get help. Stop sleeping, having sex with this woman who cannot consent.
And of course, that leads him eventually to being implied to be sexually assaulted by Frank himself because he refuses to leave. He just can't help himself. And this is the first film you could argue started the trend of a woman in trouble narrative that Lynch really loves in his works. And
there's a lot of Laura Palmer in here.
Yeah, there is. There definitely is. You could see that, and having to rescue her is a huge part of that. But Jeffrey is way in over his head. That's the issue. That's another part of that.
Well, one of the things that I think Lynch likes to do is he likes to present us these women and go, okay, Hollywood has told you that it's a man is to be a hero, and a hero rescues the damsel in distress, right? Mm-hmm. But what if the damsel in distress is a whore? Is she still worthy of rescue, right? Mm-hmm. Or is she bad and therefore complicit in her own suffering, right? Is she? And so he likes to really.
Or did she do something to deserve it?
That's it.
That's another thought process that he wants you to think about that.
That's right.
And then he wants you to flip that and realize that no woman deserves to suffer this way, no matter what actions they did, whether they cheated on their husband, whether they were a sex worker, whether they use drugs.
Right.
No, it is not. No one deserves that fate, especially women.
Right. Correct. Yeah, that is his. I agree with you. I think that is his conclusion over and over and over again. And his conclusion is also like, these men aren't heroes.
Yes, they're not.
They're not. And that's the lesson that MacLachlan's character learns by the end of the movie is that he is no hero. Mm-hmm. That he is,
He's a dumb college kid who doesn't.
He's just a
know
dumb
what he's
kid,
doing.
yeah. And he kind of, by the end of it, does whatever the closest thing to the right thing is in a David Lynch movie. But yeah, he's at what cost, right? He's exposed himself that his you know, he's followed this path of darkness because, like you said, there's something in him, and maybe there's something in all men that is attracted to the darkness. As much as that we're repelled by it, we are attracted to it, right?
Yeah.
And that goes into that complex that we do have as men. We really do have it of, you know, it even shows up in pop songs of the lady in the street but a freak in the bed, right?
Yes.
Like that's what men kind of want. Men want women who are dangerous, but safe.
Yes.
I want to be scared. I want to be scared, but I don't want to be emasculated.
Yeah. The sexiest virgin, the most experienced sexy virgin you can think of, basically.
That's right.
The Betty Boop complex, basically.
Yeah.
She's built up like a pin-up doll, but she is just so safe, and she is definitely virgin, and she is virgin till marriage. Even though she's a flapper girl.
Yeah, right. She's a virgin flapper, right, with big tits, right?
Yes.
The
Betty Boop complex.
Right. That is a real thing, though. You know, you want somebody. This programming is that men want somebody who can sort of dominate but never overpower them.
Yeah.
You want to be dominant. It's like soft dom in a weird way, right? You want to be you want to cede control to the woman, and for the woman to be almost an avatar for your own lusts. Right? I want a woman to make love to have sex with me the way that I would have sex with a woman, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but you know, but I also then the rest of the time I want that woman to have no autonomy and no control and be very innocent and kind of naive, right? And it's like that's not how people work. You're not going to get some well-cultured, worldly, sex master, sex crazed nymphomaniac virgin. It doesn't.
It doesn't work that way. That's not how the world works.
Yeah,
unless it was a sex robot or something like that.
That's right. Yeah, if you could program a sex robot to be the most experienced lover in the world and to kind of dominate you, but then you could also turn the switch off, right? And be like, now I want you to be docile. I want you to be dominant and docile. And that's like, okay,
that's what Frank wants from Isabella Rossellini's character, and that's why he is. And that's what's truly terrifying about him, because he does reflect a lot of that dark male desires that a lot of men don't want to express about themselves.
He's like an id. He's like an id in human form.
He is the id.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And yeah, I didn't expect us to have this, to go into this kind of conversation with the film, but it's okay. Yeah. I think that's right? Is that there is this impossible expectation has been put on you as women that you have to be everything, right? That you have to be our healers, our therapists, our mothers, our lovers, our best friends, you know, our caretakers, our nurses, our in many ways, like, I think maybe you and I have talked about this before, but what's interesting is if you look at really, really patriarchal structures, not just like soft patriarchy, implicit patriarchy, but genuinely like hierarchical patriarchal structures, and like deeply religious homes, for instance.
Yeah.
One of the things that you'll always find is that the mom or the wife or mom-wife actually really runs the show.
Yep.
Like the man, like you establish all this patriarchy for the man to basically just go, okay, you do it all.
Yep.
Right? like you be like, I'm not actually gonna make
what's for dinner? You chose just right. What'd you cook me for dinner?
right. I'm not gonna make any choice.
Dinner, just like
right. I'm not going to make any choices whatsoever. I'm not going to know who, what insurance do I have? What's my doctor? How do I make an appointment? Where do I get our prescriptions from? Where do the bills get paid? Right?
Sounds like my brother right there.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it works. Like, the women control the finances. The women control this. The women control this. And they control almost everything in these patriarchal homes.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even the guys will even sort of joke about it. Like, oh, I got to ask the boss.
Yeah.
But they're not really joking. They go, hey, Jerry wants to go fishing on Sunday. Is it okay if I go? Right? It's like, but meanwhile, the ideology is that, well, the man has to be in charge, has to rule the home. Mm-hmm. But in practicality, the praxis of it, he doesn't control anything.
Mm-mm. Or at least he has the final say.
Yes.
There's a difference.
But the day-to-day, the step-to-step, he has he's totally cedes any autonomy, responsibility.
And that's just pressure on women, because
that's my point. That's impossible.
We don't want to do all that. It's twice the work. There's even so many studies about how men actually benefit more from marriage than women do. Single women are actually happier than married women a lot of the time. Well, married men are happier than single men.
Well, also because single men typically have no friends.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's sad because men need to have emotional conversations with their guy friends too, and they won't.
Do, but society has
or they're just an entire group of men, not just one friend. Correct. It's just like, I gotta have a whole group of friends. If I just have one friend, then I'm either seen as a failure or I'm gay.
Right? Yeah, that's right. And those relationships can never get beyond a certain depth because men are not trained to be able to have those emotional conversations.
Yeah.
And so therefore, men need to go find a partner who needs to be this alluring vixen, forbidden fruit sort of figure, right? This sort of
Lilith.
Lilith.
Yes.
You got to be Lilith and the Virgin Mary, right? You got to be the one to like lure me in and seduce me, but never emasculate me.
Yeah,
unless I want you to, but nobody could ever know about it. And and all like, but I'm saying all that to say this: that all of that runs through this movie, and what is ostensibly a detective story.
Yes,
and a lot of it lands into the character of Frank, who's Dennis Hopper's character, and the people around him, even Dean Stockwell's character, where Dean Stockwell is presented as an effeminate, he's like in pancake makeup, looks kind of sickly.
Yeah, the effeminate MC character.
Yeah. He's almost like a cabaret host or something.
Yes.
But it's a hideout, it's a flop house for these low-level gangsters, and he's just as cruel as anybody else. He is this sort of foppish brute. He's basically doing a little, he's borderline drag, right? He's doing this very sort of gay pantomime, and then just beats the shit out of comic
yes.
And it's just as sick and deranged because it's this guy's place that the kid is being held, the little boy, Isabella Rossellini's son, is being held hostage. It's fucked up.
Yes.
So he's constantly playing with like, here's all the different ways in which men are fucked up and all their expectations and desires for women are fucked up.
Yep.
And he's just stuck it in one movie. And it's a movie where, and to Roger Ebert's point, one, I think Roger Ebert was in love with Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, no question. So was David Lynch and so was Martin Scorsese. Everyone was in love with her.
Well, Martin Scorsese was married to her or was with
great.
her for a time.
You need to follow her Instagram if you don't. It is fantastic. She posts about her farm all the time.
Well, we talked about this, though, in another episode for another podcast where I talked about fascism. I talked about Rome, the open city. And I was like, is Martin Scorsese, was he actually in love with Isabella Rossellini? They were married for a time or together.
They were.
Or was he in love with her dad? Because he was like,
Or I think she would be more in love with her mom, honestly, Ingrid Bergman. I mean, come on.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute.
So much like her too.
Well, that's my point, right? Is like this movie nerd who is completely obsessed with Rossellini's films, and her, like the dad Rossellini,
yes,
and his wife Ingrid Bergman of all people,
yes.
That then he ends up shacked up with their daughter. That's kind of twisted. That's kind of fucked up.
Well, maybe that was part of the reason why Isabella Rossellini left Martin for David.
That's okay. Yes. God Almighty. Yeah.
And they did not get married because David even said, even David did say, I am the straying type, so you shouldn't marry me. And she's one of the few that said, yeah, I'm not going to marry you.
That is hilarious. I'm the straying type. Huh?
Like, yeah, he's like, I'm not a very good for marriage type. And that's why David Lynch said they kept marrying me, even though he said, I'm not a good marriage. I'm not a marriageable type. I'm not someone you can marry. I'm not a good one to marry.
Yeah, I need to start running that line. I'm not the straying type, but I'm not a good one to marry.
It kind of reminds me a bit of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, where Uma Thurman said the greatest guy I ever known was Ethan. He was my favorite husband. And it's like, didn't he cheat on you? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Who cares? He's just so nice. Like, it was just like, he was so nice to me. I don't even care he cheated on me.
We're not all the same. That's all I'll say. A lot of people are deeply disturbed by this movie. Yeah. A lot of people really love this movie. A lot of people are disturbed and love the movie. A lot of people don't love the movie, but recognize that it's a very good movie. And some people consider this his masterpiece or his definitive work. I feel this way about a lot of his work. I feel like he could have used a trim. Could have used maybe 20 minutes less of this movie. There's a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of...
we haven't even gone to Inland Empire yet.
We're not going to get there today either. No, we're ending at Mulholland Drive. I don't know, man. I think this is by default of the 5 movies we're covering today. This is the second best. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I know that makes me like not legitimate because I'm saying The Elephant Man is better than this, but I think that it is, and I am also kind of a sucker for black and white, that kind of cinematography. Not all black and white movies, but the deep contrast that you see in the film that I could even manage to make out of the terrible transfer that I was watching, where the sound was not in sync either, by the way. Oh. So not even remotely in sync. And so like I think that kind of helped The Elephant Man because I'm like, this is the worst possible way to watch this movie. I'm watching it on a computer, which I do not watch movies on phones or computers ever. I'm watching this movie on a computer.
You should be so proud.
A terrible fucking transfer with the sound completely out of sync with the film. And I am crying and I'm moved and I'm entrenched and I am captivated by the film. So the 4K is still, I don't know, it's in the Ukrainian conflict right now. I don't know where the fuck it is, but it's going to get here one day and I'll watch it proper in 4K. But until then, so I think that's got to be my number one. I will also say I think the cinematography of this movie is beautiful. I think in some ways, but this and Elephant Man are his most cinematic movies. There's something about the quality of a lot of his films, especially later in his career, that feel very televisual. They feel very TV. And there's one movie on this list in particular that it was originally a television show or intended to be a television show where a pilot was shot and the entire movie feels like a TV show to me. And it's an early 2000s TV show, which means it's ugly as fucking shit. And so this feels like a movie. This feels like a motion picture. And so it's my number 2. What would you give it? Where would you rank it?
So this one would also be number 2 for me, but I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
It's just like, or a 9.5 out of 10. It's It's just so good. And
do you find this movie arousing or certain scenes arousing? We never
I
got
say
to
like certain scenes with Kyle and Isabella can be arousing, but then it's just immediately stripped away once Frank comes in, and then you're like, oh god, now I feel bad that I felt kind of hot about these scenes. Scenes just like, and that's
I think
why
he wants that to
It
happen
works.
though, right? He wants to kind of work you up a little bit
Mhm.
and then kind of make you feel bad for being worked up because you're like, wait, it's like he like reorients you to go, oh, wait a minute, what the fuck is this situation? Oh shit, this isn't weird. This is weird.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, it's time to move on to 1992's much reviled and then potentially reclaimed prequel, beating George Lucas by damn near 7 years. To his television series, which had one good season and one questionable season, which most people hated, and then a third season, which very few people watched, but the ones who watched it seem to have loved it. Of course, I'm talking about Twin Peaks. Fire Walk with Me.
You think you know Twin Peaks?
The killer will strike again.
Burst into fire.
You're wrong. Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
Film was released May 16th at Cannes. It was released July 3rd in France in general. It was released August 28th, 1992 across the United States. On a budget of $10 million, it only made $4.2 million. Is David Lynch the template for all things strange in the 90s? Specifically Pete and Pete. Better question, is Twin Peaks the template for all the off-kilter shit of the 90s? Is Pete and Pete Twin Peaks for Nickelodeon kids?
Well, you could argue maybe Northern Exposure might have kickstarted a little bit, but I think
Does Northern Exposure predate Twin Peaks?
I think so, because I think that's where Mark Frost worked, and that's where David Lynch hired him from, because he did like Northern Exposure.
Which I have just started watching Northern Exposure. I'm only in the first 6 or 7 episodes of the first season, and because I have memories
that
of
was
it.
1990 as well, so around the same time. But I think Mark Frost was working on that one too. Or
when does Northern Exposure get weird? Because I know that it does, and it hasn't yet.
I am not sure, actually. I can't remember. I'm just like, no.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, which says we're both old, as Molly has established, Northern Exposure was a television series that was very cinematic, which was unusual back then. It's almost, if there's such a thing as a prestige sitcom, that's what Northern Exposure was. It was each episode was like almost like its own little movie.
Oh yeah, this was the show that I found out Mark Frost actually didn't work on it. I don't know where I got that. I know that there was some connection to Twin Peaks and Northern Exposure, but it was Hill Street Blues, I think.
That makes sense.
Is what David Lynch was interested in with Mark Frost being one of the executive storytellers.
Hill Street Blues was a revolutionary show at the time. It was kind of brought like almost cinema verite documentary style filmmaking to cop shows, which was very unusual at the time, and it went out of its way to sort of humanize all of its characters, and it basically reinvented cop procedural shows. I know that because I'm old and I was around for that too. And that was one of my mom's favorite shows. The first 90 minutes of this I think are actually pretty great, and there's a middle section of that first 90 minutes I think is okay. Almost all of the humor for the show is stripped out. I love the Chris Isaacs part, which is it's a sort of weird prequel prologue, and it feels like that's going to be the entire movie because it goes on for 30.
Be the main character, maybe.
Yeah,
because you're like, okay, Cooper's not in this. Oh wait, he is, and then it has the at the FBI headquarters where he's talking to Gordon Cole, and then Philip Jeffries comes in, and it's been years since he's been around, and all he can do is ramble about this character named Judy, and and then he disappears from the security footage, just literally disappears.
Yes.
So
yeah, and then everybody's like, they say he was never here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say this is this is gonna sound crazy if you've ever seen Twin Peaks. This is less coherent than Twin Peaks.
No, you are right. It is less coherent than Twin Peaks.
This is like Twin Peaks on heroin. Because it's not funny anymore. It's only the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It's real strange. And it gets more non-linear and nonsensical and despairing and dark, which makes sense because it's essentially leading to the death of Laura Palmer.
Yeah. It's the last 7 days of her life. So
yeah. But that happens after the first 30 minutes, which is almost its own movie.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, oh, okay, well, if this is a prequel, then yeah, I'm going to follow this Chris Isaacs and we're getting to know this character.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels kind of more Twin Peaks-ish. You're like, okay, it's like, it's not, it's like kind of funny, but darker even than Twin Peaks was funny. And then not as soap opera-y. And you're like, okay, all right, this could be interesting. And then that movie just ends.
Yeah.
And then the Twin Peaks prequel
and then you never really get it picked back up until the return because Harry Dean Stanton's character is in this neighborhood that Chris Isaacs and Kiefer Sutherland come around, and then Harry Dean Stanton returns in the return.
Yeah, but the trail goes cold, and so Cooper can't find what happened to this other agent. And
but it is related because it is a sex worker who is murdered, which you discover by Leland Palmer, who has a similar build and look to Laura Palmer. And that's who the first murder victim was. And that's how they connected to the serial killer, Bob.
And we're back to the incest angle.
Yes.
Yes, because Leland Palmer is possessed by a what exactly? A negative version of himself from a mirror dimension. Is that what the Red Room is?
It's more like implied because it doesn't get till about the return where it's heavily implied that Bob is a denizen from the Black Lodge, and he was created as a result of the nuclear testing, the Trinity test, and that opened the Black Lodge, and Bob escaped and was able to come out of that. And that also then led to the creation of Laura later on in the return, where they bring up that Laura very much is heavily implied to have been created by the Giant to actually be served out to Bob to lead to his defeat. So she is this martyr, basically, which makes her fate even sadder in retrospect because
but
there was no hope for her for survival.
But does that get at the heart of your entire point about everything we talked about with all the women in all these movies? And he almost kind of literalized it in the fact that like he makes female characters in his movies almost just to serve them up as martyrs to the dark impulses of men. Right. And I don't know that he knew that, but like, again, he would never tell us, but was like, is the Dark Lodge your sex drive? David Lynch, right? Is it like, what is like, because to me, all the Twin Peaks shit, there's so many, this is such a deep, weird fandom, and I'm going to piss them all off, unfortunately, if I haven't already through this entire episode from my stupidity. But Twin Peaks to me is the one that feels like the most like talk therapy of himself. I don't know how to describe it. It's like his growing up with a mom who watched soap operas, and so he's going to make a soap opera about men and women and this teenage ingenue who's also a sex worker who all the adult men in town are paying to have sex with, including maybe her own father, in this twisted Canadian place that also has a door to another dimension, which may just be the male psyche. Right, yeah, but which was produced by
ABC.
The Trinity Test. Right.
Oh, I was like, with the Trinity Test, but the show was by ABC, and you're like,
well, yeah,
Disney did this?
And this just aired barely out of prime time on ABC. Yeah, really weird twisted. But you know what I mean? Like, you could even say like the entire like the Trinity Test and the the whole Oppenheimer of it all that's all driven by the destructive nature of male libido, right?
Yeah.
Like all this shit is in here, and I'm like, it just feels like he just kind of like unspooled his brain and was like, here's all the real nasty parts of myself that come up when I'm doing transcendental meditation that I'm letting the darkest impulses pass by me in this dreamlike state, and I'm just like channeling them into this really weird soap opera that has absurdist goofball humor in it.
Yes.
And now I'm going to make a movie a few years later that is going to explain everything that led to Laura Palmer's death. And it's going to make no fucking sense and not have a single joke in it. It's not going to be funny at all. It's going to be disturbing. And I'm going to appear in it. I'm going to scream the entire time. Again. Yeah.
Well, his character can't hear, so that makes sense. So you're like, okay.
I get that, but he just screams for a long ass fucking time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Us fans, we love Gordon Cole, so we just.
And my point in all of this, though, is so as a fan of Twin Peaks who watched it for the first time, my dad watched it, loved it. As somebody who watched it myself for the first time as an adult, maybe about 15 years ago, when it was on the early days of Netflix streaming. That used to be called Netflix Instant.
Yes.
And they were still doing the DVDs. And I had the DVDs, and they were like, well, do you want some instant shows as well for free? And I was like, sure. And I was like, oh, X-Files and Twin Peaks. I love X-Files. I'll watch the X-Files. I'll watch Twin Peaks. I'll watch Red Dwarf. And that was like basically all that was on there. So I don't know my lore, Palmer. I don't know my lore. I don't know. I don't know it. I've never meditated on it. I don't have no fan fiction of this shit. I'm just simply saying that I really, really, really vibed with this for about half of it. I paused it and I was like, wow, this has been pretty good. We got to be getting close to the end. There was 56 more minutes of this thing. And I thought, oh no, what are we doing here? What are we doing? And I never got back because it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing for me to hang on to. And this is the fourth one of these things that I have watched in a row in basically a day. And I'm like, I need some kind of A to B. I need a tether. I need a hole in reality. God, Lynch, help me. Get me back to some kind of somebody's got to step on a rake. There's got to be some physical comedy here, for God's sakes. And yeah, I chuckled when Log Lady showed up, and I was like, okay. But then even her shit was dark and twisted. And when they would bring the fan favorites back, you're like, oh, well, there's that part. Oh, God, it's real twisted. And unfortunately, Cheryl Lynn, she's hysterical. Like shaking, trembling, crying,
she's
screaming.
So good. I personally think she's devastating to watch.
For 2 straight hours, though. And it's just like, I got, Lynch is screaming at me. She's screaming at me. Fucking Leland screaming. Grace Zabrowski is screaming. George's mother-in-law from Seinfeld. Everybody's screaming. And I started with, the Eraserhead baby screaming at me. This is screaming at me. And I had enough. And I got to the point where I hated what I was watching. And then I have to agree with Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, when he said David Lynch has finally gone up his own ass and disappeared. When they saw this movie. I think there is a good movie somewhere in here, but it has to be 40 minutes shorter. I couldn't stand the last 25 minutes of this movie, or 35 or 45 or whatever the fuck it was. Yeah, this is my worst of the week, bar none. I give it a 5 out of 10. I'm sorry, Molly. I let you down.
It's okay. I mean, I was not that impressed the first time I watched it, but then I rewatched it, and the second time, not the third time, and I loved it. I I never felt such a connection to Laura until then, and felt heartbroken for her for this, and understanding that she was a character you could love, and she was someone who you could love and understand. And Cheryl Lee just abused that performance. It's just one of the best performances of any actress of all time, in my opinion. And it's just, and it just really nails in the pain of not only having to feel that you have to destroy yourself to actually have this entity stop following you, to stop the abuse. It doesn't work. And so you only feel like you are a monster yourself at the end of the day, because she's addicted to cocaine. She's a sex worker to help provide for that. And also because she wants to have sex, and also because she tries to find that after being sexually abused by Bob. And of course, it comes to a head with this film when she discovers that Bob is her father, which she didn't know. And there's this scene in the climax of the film where she's trapped by Bob, and Leland says, "I didn't know you didn't know it was me." And then Bob comes in and said, "I didn't know that you knew it was me." And that just hit me so hard. And this is a girl that had been sexually abused by Bob since she was 12 and had her since that. And it's just like a gut punch. And there's just so much. And I'm just like, you've loved Laura by the end of it. You just have fallen in love with her, when so long in the show you only saw her through videotapes, through video recordings, through other people's perceptions of her, and now you see her really in person. And it's a great performance, and I love this film. So
okay. I love parts of this film, and I think if you were to take any particular scene and show it to me, I would like it, because it has what I liked about Twin Peaks in it. It's just that I think this movie also had the disservice of immediately being watched after Blue Velvet, and that's a lot of dark right in a row. That's a lot of weird sex, rape, incest, abuse, sadomasochism, surrealism
in one day.
Yeah. So I was like, and without those ABC primetime jokes, I just couldn't get through it. It was just too much. Eventually my soul went, we got to stop this. We're not absorbing any more of this. We're not going to watch any more of this poor woman or any woman be abused. We got to stop this. So I did. I very rarely have to stop, but I stopped. I said, okay, I got about 45 more minutes of this fucking thing. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to watch a couple episodes of Empty Nest, which is the Golden Girls spinoff, starring Christy McNichol. It's only available on YouTube. Again, physical media. Where are my Empty Nest? It was never released on DVD.
Was that was the show with the guy who plays he was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, John Cheadle. It was one of his first roles, and he was like the bellhop.
That's the other spinoff. That's the Golden Palace.
Oh, that's right.
This is a spinoff based on one of Dorothy's boyfriends on the show, who was a pediatrician. He's an older guy too. He has two daughters. Kristen McNichol is one, and Dina something else is the other. It's him and his two adult daughters, their dog Dreyfus, and their goofy neighbor. He's a pediatrician, and that's essentially what the show is. One's a cop and one's kind of a flighty divorcee, and that's why it's called Empty Nest, because his two adult kids live with him.
Oh,
which was very unusual in 1986.
Yeah. Woman in her early 20s, unmarried.
Yeah. Women in their 30s living with their dad. Yeah.
Even though we had Mary Tyler Moore actually end the show at 37, unmarried.
I know. What a shame, too. I would have married her.
I know. It's like, but yeah, it's like we regressed at some points.
What a dream, Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what a dream. Yeah. So I then had I watched Empty Nest and with Dreyfus the dog, and I watched a plot about getting the flu, and I watched a unpicked up pilot. They made the pilot, but they never picked up the show. I don't even know if the pilot ever aired, but it's on YouTube, and it was a Dinah. Oh my God, what's her name? I want to say Dinah Moore, but that's not right.
Dinah Shore?
No. But it's one of the daughters from Empty Nest. It was her earlier in her career, earlier in the 80s. She played like a New Jersey door-to-door makeup saleswoman, cosmetic saleswoman, who befriends a woman who's really having a rough time of it with her boyfriend. She seems wealthy, kind of put together, young, tall, pretty, and she's a friend to her. It turns out that woman is a supermodel.
Oh.
And she's dating the Mick Jagger of the sitcom universe.
Oh. Okay.
And the advice that this ordinary, kind of frumpy cosmetic lady who's going door to door offered her was, and also a divorced woman, offered her was, you got to stand up for yourself and don't let any man push you around and just use you for your looks and blah, blah, blah. Not knowing that she was breaking up the marriage between a supermodel and her favorite rock star.
Oh,
and the show was called She's With Me because all the guys only wanted to be with the supermodel, and anytime she brought her friend around, they were like, she'd have to be like, she's with me. And it was a female empowerment sitcom that never got picked up.
Oh,
so I watched that to cleanse the palate.
I will say that the final scene of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, I think, is one of the greatest final scenes. I think it's the best final scene David Lynch has ever done, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah. The final scene where she's in the red room and the angel is there, and Coop is right there, just like holding her shoulder, and she's smiling, just in tears.
Now wait a minute. How has good Coop always been trapped in the Red Lodge? Does that mean that bad Coop was Coop the entire time in the original Twin Peaks show?
I think it's that the Lodge has no sense of time and scale, so it doesn't really follow our time. So he could be the good Coop, but he's in the Lodge already there when she gets there. So
I see.
Yeah, I
see. Because presumably, okay, I see.
That's how they also that Coop could also become older in the Red Lodge as well, even though he's not old yet. So
yes. So then in the return, he's bad Coop the whole time? Bad Cooper?
No, because that was a doppelganger. Mm-hmm.
Bad Cooper is a doppelganger?
Yeah, because
Bad Cooper isn't Bob inside of Cooper?
No. Mm-mm. No, it's a doppelganger. Cooper is stuck in the Lodge.
Isn't Cooper Bob in the second season of Twin Peaks?
No.
No, doesn't Bob leap out of Leland and jump?
No, because they make
Cooper?
a doppelganger. That's also, there's Dougie and there's another one who is taken over by Bob. But then there's Dougie Jones, and then he takes over, and then Coop comes out and he takes Doug's part, Dougie Jones's life, basically.
God damn, I'm lost. All right, so what's that?
It is very complicated. I know.
I think
it's like a tulpa is what it's called.
Huh?
A tulpa. That's what it's called. TULPA. I think it's called tulpa.
When I talk in terms of professional wrestling, is this what people hear? I'm like, well, you see, most of the modern style that became popular in places like Ring of Honor and PWG in the 2000s and 2010s actually goes back to Japanese women's professional wrestling, aka Joshi. Mm-hmm. And one of the great innovators of that is Manami Toyota. And she had this Destiny Climax match in circa 1993 that men are still barely trying to be able to do in America now.
I think the pro wrestling makes more sense than Twin Peaks, I will say.
Okay, all right. Well, you've never seen Japanese professional wrestling. Okay, so what was your score and rank for this one?
So I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10, but it's going to be ranked after Eraserhead. So
Okay, you moved Eraserhead down to 4, didn't you?
yeah, and so Fire Walk with Me is number 5.
Oh!
And we're not doing, I don't think we're doing Lost Highway or,
Nope.
No, and not Wild at Heart, of course, because we skipped
Nope.
that.
That's right. So we're doing Mulholland Drive, which currently has a 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
From acclaimed director David Lynch.
The girl is missing.
What do you want me to do?
The deeper you go,
I don't know what my name is. That money, you don't know where it came from.
the clearer you see.
I remember something.
The stranger it gets.
You're playing a dangerous game here.
Whoever you're hiding from, they know where you are. Mulholland Drive, rated R.
It's a triumphant return of Naomi Watts. Last seen in King Kong. Robert Forster. Foxy Brown maybe is the last time we've seen him, but I feel like I've seen him since. It was released May 16th, 2001 in Cannes, October 12th, 2001 United States, November 21st, 2001 in the rest of France. And a budget of $15 million. It made $20.1 million. Now, if I haven't lost all credibility yet, 2 hours in, I'm going to lose it here. You ready? I always confuse this movie with LA Confidential. So I fired this movie up and going, okay, well, I've seen this one before. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's Kevin Spacey? I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, God, no. The worst surprise for a David Lynch film, Kevin Spacey showed up.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey is Bob. I'm
no. We love Frank DeSilva. Even though that would be the worst thing possible for Bob to actually be played by a real alleged sexual predator. Like,
Brian Singer's got a red lodge, if you know what I mean. It's pool parties with twinks in Malibu. Yeah, I was like, this is not. And I was like, what the fuck movie am I thinking of? And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking of LA Confidential. Then I was watching. I was go, oh, not a movie. Not a movie, not a screenplay. This film, Mulholland Drive, at least 3/4 of it is what if Quentin Tarantino, the person, was written and directed by David Lynch. It's not a Tarantino movie. It's not a Tarantino screenplay. It's what if the man, Quentin Tarantino, was just a project of David Lynch. That's what this is. This is David Lynch's Pulp Fiction. It just happens to be about lesbian breakups. And my question to you, Molly, you're closer to this than I am. Are female same-sex relationships, their breakups, always this dramatic?
Some of them are, yes. It was really funny that we had someone drop off books and there were some lesbian sex tips in there and like, oh, this girl had a girlfriend and this breakup is not going well. Because she actually brought it in. She said, I don't want any money. I want this out. And I was like, okay. It was all her books. It was her girlfriend's bookshelf. We're like, okay.
It's been a month, Diane. I want those sex books out of here. You said you'd pick them up. Oh my god.
We were like, oh my god, what boy pissed her off? And then we saw it was like lesbian sex stuff. We're like, oh no, this was a girl.
Now, when that girl gave that book to you and you took it,
it was like her girlfriend's entire bookshelf, actually.
And did she vanish? And then you?
Yeah, she just left. She was like, I don't want any money for this. Just get it out. Just take it. Take it. I don't care.
And she vanished, and then you vanished, and then when you woke up, you were that girl. Is that what you're telling me?
Lord, I wish. She was kind of hot.
I also laughed out loud when Naomi Watts is kind of humping a red dress before she shoots herself, and I went, "That's where Tommy Wiseau got it from."
Yes.
Like, I'm fairly certain the ending of this movie is like what inspired the ending of The Room.
Yep, basically. Now I'm imagining Naomi Watts just saying, "In a few moments, bitch."
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Oh, Lisa. Oh, what's her name? Rita Chalmers. What's her name?
Yeah, but
Rita.
In the real world, her name is Camilla.
You're
in the real world,
Rita.
Yes.
This is a sexy movie.
Yes.
If I was a 14-year-old boy, which I was a little bit older than that when this came out, I was probably a sophomore in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been super horny watching this and would have worn the tape out and would have been embarrassed to turn it back in and watch this. This is like 2001.
It was like the good version of Wild Things.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. It's Wild Things if it actually delivered.
Yes.
Sorry
to fans of Wild Things.
Yeah, phenomenal breast in this movie. Phenomenal. And very titillating.
Yeah.
Very genuinely erotic.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, everything you saw maybe was a bullet passing through a woman's brain. Mm-hmm. Or maybe she's in purgatory. I don't know. Who knows?
And opening that blue box is what brought her back out of there. And then she's in the real world where it turns out that, her girlfriend is actually dating her ex-girlfriend is dating this director, and she's pissed off because she's dating Justin Theroux now and just left her.
Now, for bisexual women, when a bisexual woman dates a lesbian and then the bisexual woman defaults back to a heterosexual relationship, is there really that much scorn? Is it worse if your girlfriend breaks up with you to be with a man than to be with another woman?
To some lesbians, it's the worst. I mean, that's why there are a lot of biphobic lesbians on social media. They hate bisexual women because of the idea, not only that they could leave, their girlfriend could leave them for a man, but also the idea of sleeping with someone who let a man be inside of them. That really grosses them out. And you're just like, grow up. I mean, come on.
Is that like the equivalent of being like a gold star gay where you were delivered by cesarean, so you never even passed through a vagina? Have you heard of this?
I have. I liked that phrase, "no man of woman born." I like that phrase right there, because then I get to say that because I was cesarean.
So was I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though technically for Shakespeare's term, because no one survived cesarean there, that means that you're taking out of a corpse, not a woman, because the woman was dead. Sure.
Right. Yeah.
But it's still fun to say. You're just like, I'm no man, I'm no woman of woman born. It's like, it's fun to say. You're just like, I'm no man of woman born.
Yeah. So does that make you a special type of queer person? Or are you just like, I'm sane, so I don't get all bothered by all this shit?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think it makes you a special type of queer. Even though for some lesbians, they would consider me the worst kind of queer, being also liking a few men, even though I still prefer women. They'd be like, because there are a lot of lesbians, especially on social media, who don't want to bring up that they are insecure of the idea that they can't be fulfilling enough for a woman, and that the woman will just default to the man. And that just leads to biphobic thinking. That's just biphobic thinking, basically.
That's right. And is the accusation there that you're actually just a lesbian, but you're giving in a societal pressure and you're defaulting to hetero norms? Is that
compulsive
the idea?
Heterosexuality?
Yeah, right. As opposed to actually, no, you're a human being and you could just be attracted to both genders. Maybe
I think
preferring
that's a part
one.
of that. I think most lesbians do believe. Well, most lesbians are completely cool with bisexual. It's just a really small minority in social media that have a lot of issues with it. And some straight men do, because unless they're like, oh, could you make out with a girl in front of me? Which is just another form of objectification right there.
Yeah, right.
But it's the idea of, or can you get a girl to have a three-way with us, sort of thinking. But with women, it's the idea that because society already pressures women to be heterosexual, they'll just go back to being heterosexual, even though dating a man or marrying a man does not invalidate anyone's
Yeah.
bisexuality, does not invalidate
Right.
women's bisexuality. I remember there was this article where they bring up with Anna Paquin after she married the guy from True Blood. And they said, are you no longer, well, since you married a guy, are you no longer bisexual? You consider yourself heterosexual? She said, no, I love my husband. That doesn't mean my attractions to women has ended. So,
well, that would be like me. That'd be the equivalent of asking me, like, well, now that you're married, are you no longer attracted to any other women?
mm-hmm.
It's like, that's an absurd question,
Exactly.
right? It's like, well, no.
Or
right? No.
The implication was you were faking it the whole time.
Correct. That's
it's just
right.
like, no, that's not the case whatsoever. And of course they'll bring up that bisexual women, because they a lot of times do date men. A lot of bisexual women are married to men, and that they'll say just like, oh, you were just like experimenting, or you can hide your queerness more because you are bisexual and thus you are oppressing me. And that's not the case. And that's just another form of biphobia, where it's thinking the idea of bisexual women are your enemy. And it's just, that is not the case.
We're really not good to each other as people.
No, we're not. Mm-mm.
Even amongst groups of people where you would want there to be solidarity, we still can't seem to manage it.
Yeah, no. It's all this infighting, and it's just like
Constantly.
We all want the same thing. We all have the same enemy. It's compulsive heterosexuality. It's the patriarchy. We need to all fight that.
It's billionaires.
Like, well, no, you don't agree with me on this summation, and there's a lot of
constant purity
feminist
testing.
groups, especially radical feminist groups, where transphobic people will infiltrate it, and you can't have a feminist organization or group without trans women. That just can't happen. It's the same thing of saying with the first wave of suffragettes who wanted to keep black women out of it, because
that's right.
Yeah, because they just said like they won't take us seriously if we accept black women.
That's right.
No, you can't have the progression without some of the most oppressed groups in that space working together. You just can't have that. It just doesn't work. And we're falling into the same pitfalls when we dismiss sex workers, when we dismiss trans women, when we dismiss people of color. We just fall into that. You just can't. And it's just all this infighting. It's just like we all have the same common enemy. Let's just work together, please.
Yeah. Do you feel an extra weariness because you fit into several different communities, but also are a very independent thinker and are very you're not a how do I want to say this? You don't strike me as being a follower. You strike me as being somebody who sort of arrives to the places that you do very organically, and you're very thoughtful and you think very deeply, but you're not going to just agree with something just because that's a box you find yourself in. Whatever that may be, whether it's film criticism, whether that's being a woman, whether that's being a queer woman, whether that's being on Twitter, whether that's being leftist, whether that's, or whatever you would want to say, right? Like you're really, and you have like kind of an empathy about you where there's a real, you kind of have a desire to, you're sort of like a distant observer in a way where you can kind of see, the whole thing playing out. And because you have that perspective, you can kind of end up having empathy for people who close up you don't really like and you don't really agree with at all. No. But you're like, well, I've zoomed out and I can kind of see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of where you come from. You come from the kind of big picture a lot. Do you find it more wearisome to find solidarity and community, or just be understood in the world, since you're a decent, intelligent person?
I think I do get a bit more weary, because it's just that kind of idea where people will dismiss others' criticism or dismiss ideas of other people because it doesn't fit the exact mold that they have of what things should be.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there are some times where I'm just like, yeah, no, that's a deal breaker. Like with trans women, if you don't if you don't believe trans women deserve rights, then that's a deal breaker for me. Fix your hearts or die, basically, as David Lynch would say. But also, why would I trust mostly white men who run this government, mostly are patriarchal, to decide what constitutes the idea of porn? Because mostly they're going to pick stuff that is not actually what those feminist groups are, what a bunch of the feminist groups consider the destructiveness of pornography. They're also going to take out a lot of books. They're going to say everything LGBT related is pornography. And that's why I'm scared of that, where I'm just like, they will say, we need to ban these movies because they're exploiting Isabella Rossellini. They're exploiting Naomi Watts and Laura Herring. And they will argue that. There are some people who are just like, we shouldn't have watched poor things, just watch pornography at home. And I was just like, and I posted, was just like, none of the sex scenes in there made me aroused. It's a pretty bad porn film if it can't even do that.
Blue Velvet gets me off more than porn things.
Blue Velvet does a better job with that.
But this is like this conversation, what it could be censored as being this podcast.
Exactly.
Pornographic, because we were talking frankly about sexual identities and gender and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. What's your best interpretation of LA Confidential? Do you have one?
So my interpretation of it is that it's also about the corruption of Hollywood.
Yes.
And how especially with women, it does corrupt them. And so then you have the first part of the story, which is basically Naomi Watts' like Hollywood ideal, basically scenario where she comes to Hollywood. She is
right off the bus,
faced, with this cardigan, just smiling.
Yeah, she's Laura Dern almost, like
basically,
Blue Velvet.
And of course, she is the savior who saves Rita after Rita almost gets killed in her opening scene, and having to basically mother her and take care of her, and is starting to fall for her in this scenario. And of course, you have the side plot with Justin Theroux's wife just cheating on him with Billy Ray Cyrus, which indirectly led to Hannah Montana. So
that's right. That's right.
Yes, because that brought him back to the mainstream after Achy Breaky Heart, and people were sick of that song. And he was just like, and he promoted this show, this idea for his daughter and him to star in. That became Hannah Montana. So then we have that, and then we go to the Shanto, and then it almost seems like they're starting to form similar personalities, and there's the doppelganger stuff issue, especially with the older Hollywood actresses, Lee Grant and Ann Miller as Coco, who Ann Miller was also a Golden Age Hollywood actress, and they even have a similar hair, and I love that dichotomy, that structure. And of course, then Rita is in disguise because they don't know who's going to kill her. And she has the blonde wig like Naomi Watts does. And they go to the club and they hear that beautiful singing. But it turns out it's all trickery. It's all fakery because she's been lip syncing the whole time. And then, of course, the box is open and it turns out, that doesn't really exist. That is not the real world. The real world is that her name is Diane, and she is an actress who never made it, while her ex-lover Camilla has, and also is dating this director, and Diane thinks that he slept with this director to get these roles, these parts, and that infuriates her because just like you threw away our relationship for Hollywood, So in that drive,
Is your interpretation that she did throw away the relationship for Hollywood? Is she faking straight to make it in Hollywood?
I actually don't agree with that.
Bi?
I think that Camilla did love Diane, but I think Diane became controlling, and she didn't want to, and Camilla didn't want to be controlled, and none of the women in Lynch's films want to be controlled. They want to be free and wild at heart. So
I think what redeemed this movie to me is the twist, if that's what you can call it. Redeemed is too strong of a word. I think what brought me back around to it is it felt like a new trick.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I'm watching these in concentrated doses.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's a lot of same here,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of, okay, got it. Now we're being surreal. Now we're being real dramatic. I get it, right? And somebody's going to say something that doesn't make any sense, but it's going to sound very poetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to like it, but it's not going to mean anything for the rest of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, okay. And so by this point, I'm like, oh, again. And like, I had to watch the last 45 minutes of Firewalk with me. Now I'm watching this. It's not LA Confidential. Have I seen this before then? Why do I feel like I've seen Mulholland Drive, but this isn't the movie I remember in my head? And then I'm like, is that LA Confidential? But it's not. The movie in my head is also not LA Confidential.
Mm-hmm.
So what the fuck movie is in my head? So that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand what we're doing here. It's getting really weird. Why is there smoke all around the bed? What's happening? Why are people? But as soon as they got back, I will say also, I'm kind of skeeved out by Naomi Watts' character kind of seducing a woman with a brain injury. That is questionable. Because even in the movie, she's like, "Have you ever done this before? Like, been with a woman?" She's like, "I don't know." She doesn't know who the fuck. She doesn't even know her name. Just okay. Rule of thumb. I'm a non-judgmental person. If the person you want to fuck doesn't know who they are, don't fuck them. Wait until their memory comes back. If they're like, I don't know my name or where I'm from, and I'm squatting in this empty apartment and I don't even know where I'm at, that person's not sexually eligible.
No.
Even if they're like, I want this, they're not in a state of mind where they can fully say that, right?
To be fair, I don't think the film actually I don't think it condones Naomi Watts' character at all for that.
No, I don't either. No. I'm not saying that in an attack of Lynch. I'm saying in the attack of Naomi Watts' character. I'm saying that don't be Naomi Watts at any point in this movie, even when she's the nice girl. She still sucks.
Yes.
She's bad. Don't be Naomi Watts in this movie.
Yeah, no. No.
Her
Even
performance
though Laura
is
Harring
very
is so
good,
beautiful, I don't
my
blame her for
God.
going crazy in love with her. I'm just like, yeah, she can do whatever she wants to me. That's fine with me. She's just so hot. She's so attractive.
See, we are the same.
Yeah. I wouldn't sleep with her if she had the brain injury and she didn't
That's
know
exactly
herself.
right.
I would not
Neither
do
would
that.
I.
I have standards.
But we'd both want to, wouldn't we?
Yes, we would.
Yes. And you'd be a fool not to.
It was funny. I remember I quote tweeted this tweet that somebody said just like, all these women-led films were directed by men and they are all so good and they're all celebrated for men. And then I said, a good thing to bring up is that all these films, except for Mulholland Drive, were either written or co-written by a woman. And this was stuff like Thelma and Louise and some other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And so somebody then quoted me and just said, David Lynch is a true lesbian. I was like, yeah, you got it.
Maybe he's two-spirit, something.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, my God. David Lynch is a true lesbian.
Yes.
That's pretty fucking great.
He and Bob Dylan both. I mean, they fit that category very well.
Honestly, though, he kind of dressed like a lesbian.
Yeah, he kind of did.
A lot of lesbians dress like and have David Lynch's haircut, right?
That is true. Yeah.
There's a lot of older lesbians with white flat tops walking around out there.
Yep.
In the world.
Yep.
I'm friends with one, so yeah, I'm like she's David Lynch adjacent.
Yes.
It didn't occur to me until this very moment. Holy shit. I will not tell her that.
No.
But she doesn't listen to the show, but I like her too much for that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, she looks like David fucking Lynch. Oh, my God. That's why I love you.
Oh.
Okay. Another one that we didn't talk about, but this is going back to our appreciation of the female form is, what's her name? Madchen?
Oh, Madchen Amick.
Does she ring any bells for you? Does she set off any alarms in your mind as far as an attractive woman? Are we on that same?
She's so gorgeous.
Right?
It was funny because we didn't realize, my sister and I didn't realize he was also on Gilmore Girls. For the Gilmore Girl fans, he's Christopher's wife and the one he has his second daughter with. And if you watch Gilmore Girls,
I've never
we didn't
seen
realize it. It's like, oh, it's actually because she waxed her eyebrows and her hair was flattened. So then you're like, oh, because she's got really gorgeous eyebrows in Twin Peaks, which was perfect for the 90s. But by the time early 2000s came in, thin eyebrows were the thing.
Yeah,
and so
they were.
She had them waxed tragically, and we're like, no. But gosh, she's so gorgeous. And originally, I think she tried for the role of Donna, and she didn't fit that mold. But they wrote Shelley Johnson for her to be in because David Lynch just fell in love with her the instant he saw her. And said, I need her in this show.
First of all, this makes me not unique at all. I am a sucker. I mean a literal sucker for a good, naturally arched eyebrow.
Yes.
And here's why. Here's why I bring that up. If you look at the shape of her eye, she's kind of got that almond eye kind of look, and she's got those perfectly arched eyebrows. Mm. What that eye line is that's a villain's eye line.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Madonna horror that's the horror part of it.
Yes.
That's the dangerous femme fatale thing.
Yes.
That's what clued me in because I had heard that my whole life about the Madonna horror, this or whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't think that applies to me. But I realized I like evil looking women. Mm-hmm. I like women that look like, especially in the eye line, that look evil, that have those evil characteristics. And I'm like, well, that's it. Somehow that is socially primed in my brain and it's in all of these Lynch films, and it's in Mulholland Drive, right? It's these wounded, like you said, femme fatales that need saving, and that are also seemingly dangerous, but are actually really the victims. And they're typically the victims of the person who thinks that they're the savior.
Yes.
In this case, of course, it would be Naomi Watts sees herself in whatever that reality is as a savior figure, an innocent. She's the Madonna figure, right? To Rita's horror figure. And it's not true.
No.
It's not true at all.
She is switched.
She's 100%. She's the fucking villain.
Yes.
She's or closest approximation or two in the movie. She's the dangerous one. And I just good arched, nice organically arched eyebrow, vaguely evil. Emily Blunt's got a little bit of that. There's just that's the common denominator.
Yes,
it's sharp features. I like sharp features and that triggers that. I'm scared. I'm scared, and I want to rescue this person. Right, but intrigued. Yeah. I'm terrified and aroused. So the movie kind of turned around for me because at least it was saying something. Yes, we're saying the same things that we've been saying through these other films, but at least we're also doing something else. And I thought switching them around and going, the person, and again, it's not different than what he said elsewhere, but the way he executes, it's different.
Yeah.
So for this one, I give it a 7 out of 10. It's my number 4 for the week. I think it would probably be higher if I had more spacing between the movies or had seen this earlier in the viewing process in the binge. Yeah. But to be this deep in such a concentrated dose, I was wore out, Molly. This is one of your favorite filmmakers. Can you just watch like 10 of his movies in a row like you did? Or does it get to you?
It does get to me. It does. But I've been also watching a lot of extras for a bunch of his stuff. Like Criterion's got a whole swath of his extras in there. Which is I'm so grateful for. And I can see his humanity in the back. But it's so funny to watch him when he's directing Inland Empire. And he's kind of berating the lighting technicians, just like you need to get the fucking light right, Jesus, it doesn't take an Einstein. He starts laughing at his own joke. But then right before, he's just like, Tidbit, are you ready? And I'd be like, I'm ready, David. I love you, sweetie. I was like, I love you too. And Tidbit was Laura Dern's nickname that David gave her. And you're like, oh my goodness. And you see him with the woman who played the homeless woman who shined the light in Laura Dern's face, Helena and he hears that she's nervous, and he says, Helena, don't be nervous. I'm going to feed you the line. See, I'm going to feed you the line. You're going to say the line. And she's just like, there's no possible way you're going to fail this. You're going to be sensational. You got this. And I was like, oh, I was just like, that man but it's so funny. Just like he's cussing out his male crew members who screwed up something. But then especially his female actors, he's just the nicest, gentlest soul imaginable. And you're like, oh man.
How do you think he would have treated the Ewoks on the set of Return of the Jedi had he directed it?
I think he would have treated them very well, especially since the main Ewok was played by Warwick Davis when he was 11 years old. He was so cute, so adorable, and he would have treated them so well. I think he treats his cast just very well. His crew, in fact, Nicolas Cage would bring up one of his favorite memories with him was the Kane's jury telling Nicolas Cage to sing the song he sang in the film, and he's like, Nixter, can you get right up on that table and you sing that song, Nixter? And Nicolas Cage said, it is the most fun I ever had on a film set. So yeah, so I think it's just entire cast and crew, especially the women, he just loves and shows that appreciation to. And he did. He would do that, and that's just the kind of guy he was.
Yeah. What is your score and rank for this movie as we bring this episode to a close?
So, as you probably figured out, this is my number one favorite film. Yes, the first and only David Lynch film on Roger Ebert's Great Movies list. This is not the first one he ever gave a thumbs up to. That was The Straight Story. He gave that one 4 stars in 1999. And with this one, he gave it 4 stars as well. And he was just like, this is the perfect move. It is just a perfect movie. And I think it is a miracle that it's so perfect, considering it was a pilot for a show that was never picked up. And he got enough money to actually combine this all together into a movie. And that makes you feel so much tension, eroticism, and anger, and you just feel all these emotions that are imbued in this picture. You just it's inescapable, this feeling that Mulholland Drive makes you feel and process.
I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. It's just a move. It was just, I wanted to escape. And I was like, I can't escape it. I need to escape it. I've had enough. I gotta get out of here.
And I know
that's my fault.
And I know it's still, I think it's still ranked for many film magazines as the greatest film of the 21st century yet. And
yeah,
it's up there. It is up there. Just, it's a perfect movie, and there's not a thing I would change with it. So 10 out of 10 right there. And it's my favorite David Lynch film, and I'm so happy I'm going to see it on the big screen for the first time next month.
All right, well, it's time for a recap. Coming in dead last for me is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, 5 out of 10. Coming at number 4 is Mulholland Drive, the greatest movie of the 21st century. And coming at number 3 is Eraserhead, 7.5 out of 10. Coming at number 2 is Blue Velvet with an 8 out of 10. And number 1, a goddamn masterpiece, The Elephant Man, which I give a 9 out of 10. Molly, what's your recap?
All right, so my recap, and all these films are great films. None of them are bad. In fact, the only film I would say that David Lynch made that's a bad film is Dune. That's the only one I don't like. Everything else is great. It's great too. Sensational / masterpiece. So coming in at number 5 is Fire Walk with Me, which I rank about an 8 out of 10. Next is Eraserhead. I would rate that 8.5 out of 10. Elephant Man, 9 out of 10 at number 3. Number 2, Blue Velvet, 9.5 out of 10. And Mulholland Drive, perfect 10 out of 10.
On our next episode, we'll be ranking, speaking of Criterion Collection, Criterion Collection Volume 2!
Woo!
If you're ready for someone to disappear up their own ass, I'm about to do it. Let's get artsy-fartsy one more time for another week in a row. We covered 1946's Beauty and the Beast, 1958's A Night to Remember, 1971's Walkabout, 1957's The Seventh Seal, and 1984's This is Spinal Tap. All right, Molly, well, you're not talking for 3 hours about your favorite or one of your favorite film directors, David Lynch. Where can we find you on the internet? Or what non-fascist social media networks are you a part of?
Well, you can still find me at Twitter at Raspberry Razz. I am not leaving that site to the fascists. I got there first. I was there before he was. And I ain't leaving. Otherwise, it'll be overrun by fascists. It'll just be another True Social. And I refuse to let that happen.
That's true.
All right, then. And then on Blue Sky, you can find me at mraspberry.bluesky.com. You can also find me on my WordPress website, Mollywood Writes at wordpress.com. And yeah.
All right. Well, I greatly appreciate this so much. I always enjoy talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't think of a better episode. I thank you for jumping on here at the last second. We shuffled things around, so this wasn't as well organized as I wish it would have been, and you watched probably 10 more movies than you needed to, but we got through the 5 that counted.
Hey, how dare you? I love Inland Empire.
The rest of his work has been deleted from cinematic history. It doesn't count because it wasn't covered here on Binge Movies.
How dare.
Ladies and
Except
gentlemen,
for Dune. Dune is okay to be forgotten.
Dune is better than Firewalk with me. Okay,
how
until
dare.
next time. Until next time. No gods, no kings. Binge on!